Simon & Schuster Audio presents Star Trek Federation by Judith and Garfield Reeves Stevens. Read by Mark Lenard.
On the Earth of the mid-21st century, crumbling beneath the environmental outrages of the 20th, the promise of a perfect world was a heady dream. Adric Thorson was one of that generation determined not to repeat the mistakes of the past. He had heard the call of the Supermen, whispered through the ages, and he rallied beneath the red banners and dark eagle of the optimum movement. But his progress toward becoming optimal tormented him, because he knew that whenever great men such as he dare dream great dreams, inevitably there were those who would attempt to drag them down. Thorson knew that the key to total victory over his opposition, and the resulting emergence of a new order and salvation for the world, lay in the hands of a young scientist named Zefram Cochrane. Thorson knew that whoever controlled the genius of Zefram Cochrane would control the future of humanity. Christopher's Landing, Titan. Earth Standard, March 19th, 2061. Zefram Cochrane thought he heard the stars sing to him. He could see them overhead, through the transparent slabs of aluminum that formed the dome over this part of the colony of Christopher's Landing, Earth's largest permanent outpost in near-Saturn space. Alone among humans now alive, he had recently seen the stars as no one ever had, blazing in deep space, orbiting a world belonging to another star, 4 1/3 light years from Earth. 4 months ago, Cochran had landed on a planet orbiting Alpha Centauri, the solar system closest to Earth. He had gone there and returned in 243 days, faster than any human had ever traveled before. Faster than light. Cochran heard a step behind him and turned, startled by the unexpected company. It was Micah Brock, the tycoon who had backed Cochran's development of the super-impeller, the invention that had let his ship escape normal space-time and travel faster than light. In Micah Brock, Cochran had found a champion, a backer, and most importantly, a friend. Brock smiled. "I saw you looking at the stars. What are the prospects for a colony? Oh, I know what the scanners say. But what I came out here to ask you, Zefram, is, what did Centauri B2 look like to you? What did it feel like? What did it taste like to breathe alien air?" Cochran recalled the tang of that air, sere, dusty, but filled with a scent of life. "Numbers and scanners aside, Micah, it's a place where people could live, with no more hardship than desert equatorial regions on Earth." Brock nodded. "And humans will be like dandelion seeds blown on the wind." Cochran smiled at his friend's grandiose dream. "You know how long it would take to establish even a single colony in another solar system, even with a super-impeller? You know how much it would cost? €1 billion, 4 years. Cochran was startled. "Why the hurry, Micah?" Brock's eyes burned into him. "They once said, because of the expansion of business, the rapid spreading of information, and the resulting reduction of prejudice, it would make war a thing almost impossible." "What's your point, Micah?" "They're going to say the same thing about what you've done. That the fluctuation super-impeller will bring an end to war? Well, won't it? I mean, wars are fought over resources, and the super-impeller opens up the galaxy. There's no end to resources now. Wars are fought because that is what people do. Resources are an excuse, nothing more." Cochran felt frustration rising in him. The super-impeller has no military function, if that's what you're worried about. On Earth, it can't function for more than a nanosecond without self-destructing. Remember Kashishawa Station? Brock's expression hardened. I know it has no military function, but the super-impeller has no peaceful function either. It's technology, Zefram, neutral. It's only what humans make of it. And what should we make of it? An insurance policy, Zefram. War won't end. The super-impeller won't do it. But what the super-impeller will do is make sure the next war won't cause humanity's extinction. There won't be a next war. The new United Nations, we're not that many years from World War III, Zefram. And Centauri B2 will be far enough away not to get involved. Centauri B2, and a half-dozen others within the decade, perhaps 20 within the same number of years. Cochran gave his friend a skeptical look. Not even you can afford to spend 20 billion euro dollars on 20 extra solar colonies. You've made space travel quick. Now leave it to me to make it inexpensive. You're telling me all of human history is a race, aren't you? That we've always been running away from our own worst instincts, and that we always will be. Brock gave Cochran a look the physicist knew too well. A surprise was coming, and it wouldn't be pleasant. Zefram, Colonel Adric Thorson left Earth 2 hours ago. He's coming here to see you. Cochran shuddered at the thought of such a meeting. Why does he want to see me? Don't flatter yourself. He wants to see your ship. He wants to make it his. The Optimum aren't interested in the universe. They're interested in control. I'm guessing Thorson's coming here to see if he can suppress your invention. But don't worry. The genie is out of the bottle and will never go back in. So what do we do about Thorson? I'll take care of Thorson. I want you to leave. Cochran stopped dead. He could tell Brock didn't just mean Titan or near Saturn space. As in, leave the system? Brock's expression was grim. That's right. Far enough out so that you can use the super-impeller again. Brock laid out his flight plan, telling Cochran to re-enter the solar system opposite Saturn's present position, to rendezvous with asteroid RG-1522. I've got a manufacturing setup there. You can get started on the second generation of the super-impeller. I want you safe from the Optimum. London. Optimal Republic of Great Britain. Earth Standard, June 21st, 2078. London was in flames. Not even the drug-controlled soldiers of the Optimum could contain the riots any longer. Zefram Cochrane had no trouble admitting that his return to the planet of his birth had been a mistake. Cochran was riding next to Sir John Burke in the back seat of the stately Rolls limousine. The elderly scientist had once been chief astronomer for the Royal Astronomical Society, before the Optimum movement had triumphed. Sir John tapped the silver handle of his cane against the view screen. "Look at them. Worse than bloody Cromwell in his lot." Everything Micah Brack had said to Cochran on Titan 17 years ago had come to pass. It was no longer a question of if there would be a Third World War, but when. Cochran glanced at the view screen beneath Sir John's cane. The limo was approaching a checkpoint near the Thorson Central Hub, once known as Victoria Station. The data agencies were reporting some maglevs to Heathrow was still running. From there, an orbital transfer plane to any platform would be enough to get Cochran off-planet. Or so the plan went. But Cochran wasn't hopeful. On the view screen he saw the ominous grey hulks of zombies, the name the public had given to the fourth world mercenaries the Optimum employed. They were lining civilians up against a wall. Cochran thought, and I wanted to take this species to the stars. He was 48 years old, but felt far older, because of what he felt might be his complicity in what was happening on Earth. Nothing less than its destruction. Colonies on worlds around other stars were on average no more than 4 months away from solar colonies, like those on the Moon, Mars, and Titan. The solar colonies for the first time could turn to other worlds. Earth was no longer critical to the survival of the human race. And all because of him. Cochran's thoughts were interrupted by the compartment speaker, and Cochran heard the chauffeur's voice.
"Checkpoint ahead, gentlemen. You'll need your cards."
Cochran's card falsely identified him as an American businessman from one of the Optimum-controlled states. Sir John's network had established an elaborate scenario to preserve Cochran's real identity. The need for such subterfuge had been prompted by the leader of this region's Optimum movement, Colonel Adric Thorson. Thorson had appeared on data agency uploads, proclaiming Cochran to be an enemy of the greater good. Thorson's continued obsession with Cochran was because the Optimum had apparently concluded that Cochran's superimpeller did have military uses, and that Cochran alone held the key to unleashing that potentially unconquerable power. Cochran knew it was a mad hypothesis, derived from an incomplete understanding of his work. 3 days after arriving on Earth, Cochran was bundled off to a safe house. His preparations were made to return him to the stars. Sir John touched the control that cleared the window. A trooper leaned down, her features swollen by the chemicals flooding her system. She took their identity cards and slid each card into the scanner on her shoulder, then read the output on the status screen on her fist gun. The chauffeur, a distractingly attractive young woman in a traditional black uniform, looked back at Sir John.
"They appear to be running your guest cards through an uplink. To be candid, sir, doesn't look good. Not by a long shot."
Plan B, if you please, Monica. Drive on. An instant later, Cochran felt himself slam down into the passenger bench as the roll seemed to explode beneath him. The fan jets, which had been designed to make a 1-ton vehicle hover a meter off the ground, were now being used to control a car with an inertially adjusted mass of no more than 10 kilos. The city flew by. Cochran marveled at the abrupt change in their situation. However, the rest of Europe might as well be light years away.
"Sir John, we'll never make it past the coastal defenses."
The elderly astronomer chuckled.
"Give us credit for having half a brain. We brought you to Earth under the Optimum's nose, and we'll bloody well see to it you get back where you belong."
The car had leveled out and was now dropping straight down. Cochran felt as if they were descending into an enormous well. The limo bounced as the wheels made contact. Sir John checked his watch.
"Just about now, those drug-addled zombies will have gotten word to their commanders about our escape, but when they check for air traffic, we won't be there."
Sir John gestured with his cane.
"Well, get out, young fellow, we're here."
Cochran looked around. They were ringed by a tall circular structure. He could see that they had entered the structure through a large, irregular hole in its roof. "And where exactly is here?" "As I recall, you've been here several times before, as a child, I believe." "Battersea Stadium, home of the London Kings."
"Nail on the head. Ghastly game, though, can't say I'm sorry to see it go."
The chauffeur stepped out of the limo. Cochran looked at her closely for the first time. Even in the gloom, something about the set of her large dark eyes reminded him of Sir John. She shook his hand politely and introduced herself. Monica Burke. Sir John nodded. My granddaughter. A year away from graduating medical school when the bloody optimum closed the universities. Cochran sighed. It was like living in a war zone down here. Sir John, may I ask what we're waiting for? A slightly more direct route back home. Then, shockingly, for the first time in 36 years, since the playing of the final game of the last World Series, before a solemn crowd of only 300 die-hard fans, the night lights of Battersea Stadium flared on, bathing the stained and tattered artificial playing field with harsh blue light. Cochran, Monica, and Sir John threw up their hands to shield their suddenly blinded eyes. A precise line of baseball-sized explosions stitched across the field at the front of the rolls, ripping across the gleaming black hood, over the engine compartment. Years spent in space had honed Cochran's reflexes. He grabbed Monica and Sir John and shoved them behind him. The stadium's announcement system blared into life, and on 3 sides gigantic view screens flickered with the first image they had carried for decades. It was the face of Adric Thorson.
Attention on the field. Under the provisions of the Emergency Measures Act of 2076, you are under arrest. Those who resist will be contained. Those who cooperate will be dealt with under optimal conditions.
In Adric Thorson's visage, Cochran saw his future clearly. He would never leave Earth again. In short order, Cochran was captured and separated from Sir John and his granddaughter. He found himself in an office beneath Battersea Stadium, where Adric Thorson was holding out his hand in greeting.
Mr. Cochran, as you must know, I have been looking forward to the pleasure of this meeting for a long time. Of course, a noted visitor such as yourself is free to go, any time.
To test the theory, Cochran started toward the door, but then turned back.
I want to leave with Sir John and his driver. And I would like to talk with you, sir. You at least owe me that much common courtesy if you expect me to show the same toward your friends.
Cochran sat down.
What do you want to talk about? I want you to help your real home, Mr. Cochran. I want you to contribute to the Earth instead of sucking it dry and abandoning it. I have helped the Earth. There's a whole new interstellar community growing. A whole new mentality that says because the Earth is no longer unique, it is permissible for it to be destroyed. What do you want me to do? Go out and ask everyone to give back their super-impellers? Tell the colonists there's been a mistake? And would they all like to come back to Earth now? Don't be infantile. I want quite simply the secret of the continuum distortion generator. I want the secret of the warp bomb, Mr. Cochran, and if you expect yourself and your friends to live to see the dawn, you will give it to me now.
Cochran saw insanity in Thorson's empty blue eyes.
Colonel Thorson, there is no such thing as a warp bomb. That's an old, senseless rumor.
Adric Thorson shook his head.
On August 8th, 2053, a pressurized dome 100 kilometers from Kashashoa Station literally disappeared from the face of the moon.
Cochran sighed. It seemed that old tale would haunt him forever. In fact, the explosion was proof that the continuum distortion generator he was trying to perfect as a precursor to the super-impeller had no possible military application.
Colonel Thorson, it doesn't matter how big a generator you build or how powerful you make it.
All you will ever get out of it is a bubble of displaced space-time 18 meters in diameter. This close to the sun, that's as large as the continuum distortion bubble can grow, before it no longer exists in space-time. What you are suggesting is impossible.
Thorson loomed over Cochran, casting his shadow across him.
The optimum has enemies, Mr. Cochran. A warp bomb could save us, with such a weapon purely for self-defense. No one would dare attack us. War would at last become unthinkable. And what you must always remember, Mr. Cochran, is that people such as you exist only because people such as I allow it. The ideas you spread can disrupt the public order, and the public, my public, will not stand for that. Colonel Thorson, even if a warp bomb were possible, if it were the only thing that would keep the optimum movement in power, I would rather die than build it for you.
Thorson reached into the breast pocket of his dark orange jumpsuit and withdrew a local net phone from his pocket.
This is Colonel Thorson. Mr. Cochran and I appear to have reached an impasse, which must be broken. Bring in the old man and his driver.
Sir John and his granddaughter were pushed roughly into the office. Thorson confronted them.
Mr. Burke, we're not playing games any longer. I know this passenger is Zefram Cochrane, and I know your driver is your granddaughter. To get to the point, I have asked Mr. Cochran for information which he does not wish to provide. Therefore, I am hoping that one of you might persuade him to change his mind.
Monica spit on Thorson's gleaming black boots. Thorson laughed scornfully.
Very good, Miss Burke, but hardly wise.
Thorson's fist shot out and caught Sir John in the stomach. Then Thorson caught Monica Burke by the throat as she attempted to strike him.
Do you know what my soldiers do to people like you? Corporal, take the old man outside and kill him.
Two mercenaries grabbed Sir John by his coat and hauled him to his feet.
Mr. Cochran, you're the only one who can change my mind. But the warp bomb is impossible.
Thorson nodded at the mercenaries holding Sir John.
Make the old man suffer.
They started to pull Sir John to the door, and he called out,
At least give me the dignity of walking to my fate under my own power, sir.
Thorson sighed. He looked around, saw Sir John's cane, reached down, brought it to him, and slapped it into his hands.
Walk to your fate. I'll put your head on this cane when they're finished with you.
Sir John shook himself loose from the mercenaries and walked ahead of them out the door. Cochran faced Thorson squarely.
You've got it wrong, Thorson. People like you exist because of people like me. Because we're smarter than you, more aware than you'll ever be. So in your jealousy, you try to destroy everything we stand for. Rationality, humanity, common decency, and respect.
Thorson's lips quivered. But then he smiled as a hideous shriek echoed down the corridor outside the office.
How surprising. I thought he would be the stiff upper lip type.
A second scream echoed. It was not made by the same person who first had cried out. Cochran felt electrified with hope. Thorson reached for his net phone. Monica immediately leaned over and ripped at the heel of her boot. Then Sir John was in the doorway again, cheeks flushed, aiming his cane at Thorson as if it were a rifle. A spike of red light lanced out from the tip of Sir John's cane and swept across Thorson's chest. Cochran heard the sizzle of burnt flesh. Then Monica ran at Thorson, the black plastic of her heel in her hand. She jammed it against his arm. Cochran slammed his head into Thorson's chest. The two men flew back into the wall, shattering the glass over old baseball photographs. Thorson kicked at Cochran, tried to get up, then shivered, arms stiff at his side.
Cochran caught his breath. Thorson wasn't unconscious. His pale blue eyes remained wide with hatred and still bore into him. Then Monica was at his side. She held up her boot heel. Cochran could see 3 silver needles arranged in it. Selective neural inhibitor. Shuts down the section of the brain responsible for physical movement. She tugged on Cochran's arm. There are more zombies around. We have to leave. Cochran looked back at Thorson's hate-filled stare. Why not kill him? Tempting, but then we'd become him, wouldn't we? The 3 of them headed for the corridor. In the office doorway he turned back to Thorson's fallen form, determined to get the final word. Don't you even think of leaving Earth, Thorson. The colonies are the future of humanity, and people like you have no place in it. And if you do come after me, I'll use my warp bomb on you. Cochran, Sir John, and Monica moved through the dimly lit corridor, 3 levels below the playing surface of the Battersea Stadium. As they began to move up a pedestrian ramp, Sir John turned to them. This isn't over, you two. Adric Thorson does not travel alone. Heads down, follow me. Plasma fire echoed in the stadium, but it seemed far enough away not to be directed at them. In the center of the field, not far from Sir John's limo, a circular craft waited him. What is that thing? Monica stared at it, as if waiting for a signal. Plan B. A lunar transport disk. Inertial gravity drive. A blue strobe light on the forward edge of the disk suddenly flashed 3 times. Abruptly they were running for the disk. There was an explosion on the other side of the disk. Then Cochran heard his name, blaring, echoing, coming at him from every surface in the stadium, as if the gods themselves were calling for him. They were almost at the disk. A gangplank was extended, but Cochran stumbled, looked up to the side. A giant visage of Adric Thorson looked down upon him. You will not leave. Air defense will destroy you 100 meters from the ground. The gangplank was almost before them, and then it disappeared in an eruption of fire. Sir John whirled in a circle like a mad ballerina, a dozen small fires at work on his coat. He fell to the turf, even as Monica doubled over atop him. Cochran staggered to a stop as Thorson shouted. You will never escape the optimum. You will never escape your destiny. Cochran became terrifyingly aware that Thorson's last words had not come from the displays. They had come from behind him. He turned. Thorson stood on the wall by home plate. He had a fist gun. It was aimed directly at Cochran. Earth will be your graveyard unless you join me, Zefram Cochrane. Only I can unchain your science. Give me the warp bomb. Let me celebrate your genius. Thorson raised his fist gun. This is your last chance, Cochran. Suddenly Cochran saw a red laser hit Thorson's fist gun. Monica had fired Sir John's cane, but Thorson had been faster. The fist gun fired before it exploded. Something burned into Cochran's chest as Thorson's scream pierced the air. Cochran felt hands grab him from behind. He felt himself carried up the gangplank. Gentle hands strapped him into a reclining chair. A blast couch, a display screen above it. An artificial voice ordered everyone to prepare for orbital insertion. The blast couch shook beneath him. On the screen above, he saw the stadium grow smaller. Then it disappeared in a gout of blue plasma, in waves of explosions. He pictured Battersea Stadium melting as if a small sun had ignited within it. Baseball really was dead, he decided, and so was Thorson. Incandescent, back to the stuff of stars. Cochran felt a hand grip his. He looked through blurring, closing eyes at Monica. Her smile was beautiful. Then he realized that he could not last until they cleared the atmosphere. Darkness rolled up for him like the clouds of Titan, bringing on the liner's disappearance. McCoy stepped into the fray. "How did you leave it with Cochrane, Jim?" "I managed to convince the Admiral that there was a slight possibility that a second energy field, similar to the one we encountered, has manifested itself in the Gamma Canaris region. And because of our previous experience with it, the Enterprise is the ship to investigate." "And how did you explain the message from a dead woman?" "I told the Admiral that before the Commissioner's death she was badly affected by her encounter with the energy field. What we're seeing might be another manifestation of that field, recreating an essence of the Commissioner." McCoy frowned skeptically. "You think she believed you, Jim?" "Not a hope in hell, Bones. I was just buying time. I think the Admiral is just playing out the line, hoping to reel me in when whatever scheme she thinks I'm involved in explodes in my face." Spock stared at Kirk. "I believe you should tell the Admiral the complete details of our encounter with the companion and Mr. Cochran. Telling the Admiral everything is an option, Spock, when circumstances warrant. In a few hours we will have arrived at the site of the Babel Conference. Once the diplomats and dignitaries have been accommodated there, I presume we'll go directly to the Gamma Canaris region." Spock took on the manner of a stern Academy lecturer. "Whatever happened to the liner must be connected to the companion's message to Captain Kirk. She said, 'The man is lost.' If he is lost, then it is logical to assume that she is looking for him. To look for him, she might require a space vessel." McCoy jumped in. "What about the other way around? Somebody got the liner and used it to go after Cochran." Spock looked away. "That would presuppose that your hypothetical somebody knew Cochran was on the planetoid. No one has that information except the three of us." Kirk shook his head. "Not necessarily. The information is in my private log. The Enterprise's computers are quite secure, Captain." "Yes, Spock. But what about Starfleet archives? Is there any way you can check on the security of the archives without doing anything that would arouse Cochrane's suspicions?" Spock considered the request. "Informally, I believe there are one or two avenues open to me." "Do it, Spock. Let me know as soon as you learn anything about the archives." McCoy then encouraged Kirk to get some rest. And Kirk lay down, but awoke what seemed an instant later as the computer told him Spock was outside, waiting to come in. Spock entered as direct as a Klingon. 27 days ago, an explosion interrupted main and auxiliary power at the Starfleet archives at Aldrin City. All security systems were down for 42 minutes. The storage cylinder containing your personal log was out of place upon the restoration of power. There is a possibility that a person or persons unknown have read the contents of your personal log and learned of the continued existence of Zefram Cochrane. Kirk was wide awake and alert. The knife wound still ached in his back, but he had a new mission. Someone else had learned the whereabouts of Zefram Cochrane and had gone after him. Most likely, not for good reasons. When the Enterprise reached the planetoid Babel, Kirk, Spock, McCoy, and Admiral Cochrane went to the transporter room to give the diplomats an official send-off to the conference. Then Kirk called the bridge. "Commander Sulu, lay in a course for the Gamma Canaris region. Proceed when ready, warp factor 7. But Cochrane, who was standing next to Kirk, said, "Warp factor 7 isn't good enough. There are 102 crew and passengers on the Planitia. Warp factor 8, Captain. Unless you've let standards on board the Enterprise drop so low, you don't think she can maintain it." Kirk knew the Enterprise could manage Warp 8 for brief periods of time, but it strained all systems, as well as the ship's structure. "Is that an order, Admiral?" "You're damn right it is." And she turned her back to him and left the transporter room. Kirk stared at the doors as they slid shut and told his suspicions to McCoy and Spock. "There's something more to Admiral Cabrani's presence on this ship than that missing liner. Her whole confrontational manner. Mr. Spock, those friends of yours who informed you about the explosion at Starfleet Archives, do you think they might be able to shed some light on the Admiral?" "In what sense, Captain?" "Anything that might explain what appears to be her overreaction to the liner's disappearance and the message from Commissioner Hedford." McCoy put his hand on Kirk's arm. "You don't suppose she knows anything about Cochran, do you?" Kirk shrugged. "What if she does? He's little more than a historical curiosity." Spock finally spoke. "Could it be possible that Cochran has another reason for keeping his whereabouts secret? As I recall, history does not record much detail about the nature of his disappearance." "He was 87 years old, Spock. I doubt he had any unfinished business." "Nonetheless, Captain, I shall investigate both avenues. Admiral Cabrani's interest in these matters, and the nature of Zefram Cochrane's latter years, prior to his disappearance." When the Enterprise reached planetoid 527 in the Gamma Canaris region, Kirk, Spock, and McCoy beamed down and set foot once again on Cochrane's world. Without question, things had changed. Kirk could guess what had happened, but he waited for Spock to confirm it with tricorder readings. Gravity is 82% of what it was 6 months ago, resulting in loss of atmosphere and heat. "Any indication of what caused the change, Mr. Spock?" Spock moved the tricorder in an arc about them. "The tricorder detects no underlying cause." McCoy studied the screen of his medical tricorder. "Nothing. No sign of Cochran or the companion." Kirk flipped open his communicator and called the Enterprise. Admiral Cabrani answered, and Kirk reported. "We're at the Galileo landing site. No energy readings of any kind." Cabrani wasn't going to give up easily. "What about the wreckage that sensors are showing about a kilometer to the west?" "We're proceeding to the wreckage now. I'll report when we get there. Kirk out." When Kirk, Spock, and McCoy rounded the ridge to the west, they didn't need their tricorders to tell them what had happened to Cochran's home. The jewel-shaped prefab shelter had been torn apart by phaser blasts. Spock checked his tricorder. He pointed to a rise in the distance. "Note the disturbance in the soil and that small hill. I surmise a craft of some kind landed there, most likely armed with a phaser cannon." Spock squinted at his tricorder screen. "Doctor, are you still detecting no life signs?" McCoy broke out his medical tricorder. I don't know. There appears to be something in the wreckage of the shelter which is alive, barely." Kirk sprinted toward the shelter. In the melted doorway of the shelter he called out. A moan came from the back, and something moved within the darkness. A slender, pale hand fell out. Kirk dropped to his knees and reached in to gather the small figure in his arms. He stood up, with the limp form of Federation Commissioner Nancy Hedford in his arms. "Companion, I heard your message. I've come for you. Where's Zefram?" The companion's eyes fluttered open at the name. "Zefram. They took the man, and he is gone. We are alone. How do you bear it?" Kirk felt her frail body tremble in his arms, and looked at McCoy in alarm. "I can't tell you why she's still alive, Jim. She was hit by a beam set to kill." Kirk looked at his officers and made his decision. "We can't keep this to ourselves any longer." McCoy agreed. "She must be treated on the Enterprise." But Spock disagreed. "She draws her life from this place, Doctor. She cannot remain apart from it." "Damn it, Spock, if I can't stabilize her, it won't matter where she is." McCoy turned to Kirk. "Jim, if I keep her in isolation, we can probably avoid Admiral Cochrane hearing any mention of Cochran. But I've got to treat her up on the Enterprise." "Bones, the Admiral can't be our main concern now. Call for a beam-up. And, Mr. Spock, I want a full security detail down here to investigate." McCoy spoke into his communicator. "Enterprise, 3 to beam up at these coordinates. Mr. Spock is staying on the surface. Alert sickbay. We have a medical emergency." Kirk shifted his grip on the companion's unconscious form. She felt so fragile. He was afraid she might break in his grasp. On the Enterprise, above the medical bed in sickbay, the companion's pulse was regular though weak. McCoy had worked his magic so that there was color in her face again, but the bandage over her phaser-damaged eye attested to the seriousness of her condition. As Kirk held her hand, she told him what happened. "They came for him at night. A ship landed not far on the hill. Zefram was so happy, so excited. He thought it might be you, Captain Kirk." Kirk squeezed her thin hand. "Do you know who they were?" "Part of us does not, but part of us says Orions." "Was Zefram alive? Did he continue?" The companion opened her eye and looked up to the ceiling of sickbay. "The man continues. We can feel him still, but he is so far away." "Could you take us to him?" That question was crossing McCoy's line. "Jim, you know she can't leave the planetoid?" Kirk leaned closer to her. "Companion, how long can you remain away from your home?" "A tiny march of days. 6. If we do not return in 6 days, we will not continue." "Companion, talk to Nancy Hedford again. Wherever the man is, can this ship go to him and return here in 6 days?" "Yes, at your fastest speed." McCoy interrupted. "This is insane, Jim. And what will you tell the Admiral?" "We'll tell the Admiral we're searching for the missing liner, and we will be. It has to be connected with this. Spock needs another hour on the surface. But then, I want the companion working with Sulu in the Auxiliary Control Center. He can go over the charts with her. Work out some sort of mutually understandable coordinate system that we can feed into navigation without being on the bridge." McCoy nodded, though it was clear he wasn't pleased. Then he asked, "Who do you think has Cochran?" Kirk shrugged. "I can't answer that, Bones. What matters is that someone has Cochran, and they have him because of my log. Why they were even looking for him in the first place, I don't know. Why Admiral Cochrane is interested in all this, I don't know. But what I do know is that we're going to find Cochran and we're going to free him. Chances are that Cochran's the one who can answer all of our questions." A short time later, when Kirk stepped out of the turbo-lift and onto the bridge of the Enterprise, his chair wasn't empty. Admiral Cochrane still sat in it. "How's the patient? Still in a coma?" The way she asked the question left Kirk no doubt that she did not believe McCoy's diagnosis. But still, the Admiral had made no attempt to see Nancy Hedford herself. "The doctor thinks she'll recover." "She's already come back from the dead once, Captain. I have no doubt she will be able to throw off the effects of exposure just as easily. Then the Admiral stood and indicated the turbolift. Captain Kirk, join me. When the turbolift doors shut, Cochrane stood with her hands behind her back. Computer, take this car out of service. The car stopped, and Cochrane faced the captain with a penetrating stare. Zefram Cochrane was down there, wasn't he? Kirk had already made up his mind not to be surprised by anything the Admiral might say. You do realize Zefram Cochrane was born on Earth in the year 2030. If he's anywhere, he would be 237 years old. Cochrane's eyes narrowed as she regarded Kirk with suspicion. Captain, I am ordering you to tell me, was Zefram Cochrane present on that planetoid 6 months ago? And if so, where is he now? The inevitable had arrived, and Kirk obeyed. On Stardate 3219.8, Mr. Spock, Dr. McCoy, Commissioner Nancy Hedford and I met Zefram Cochrane on the planetoid we're orbiting. Cochrane folded her arms and leaned back against the wall of the turbolift. What was his condition? Excellent. His ship was diverted by the energy being who lives on the planetoid. Cochrane's eyes widened. There is an energy being? Kirk nodded. The name Cochran gave her is the Companion. She somehow rejuvenated him. The Companion subsequently merged with Commissioner Hedford, moments before Sakuro's disease claimed her. They have since become a single life form. To be candid, Kirk, I thought you were making up all that crap. We were simply trying to respect Mr. Cochrane's wishes not to be disturbed. Unfortunately, Captain, Mr. Cochran no longer has that luxury. Do you know where he is now? No, but the Companion does. Can she take us to him? Possibly. By all indications below, it appears that someone, unfriendly, learned of Cochrane's presence on this planetoid by reading my personal log, then came after him and kidnapped him. Do you know who that might be? Cochrane shook her head. If I knew, any suspicions I might have are classified. You're going to have to trust me just a bit longer. Now let's get this lift back in service and get the Companion up on that bridge. Right now, Zefram Cochrane holds the future of Starfleet in his hands, and I want him before anyone else gets to him. Do I make myself clear, Captain? Kirk smiled noncommittally. He had no intention of being cooperative with someone who might be out to undermine the Federation. But there was no need to tell the Admiral that. Unless it came time to arrest her, of course. The Enterprise blazed through space so that the stars were rainbow smears of light around her. For now, Kirk stood at the Admiral's side, eyes fixed on the screen. The Companion, wearing a standard blue technician's jumpsuit, sat behind him on the upper level. In a chair at Spock's science station, she was guiding the Enterprise's course by her inexplicable contact with Cochran, which Sulu had managed to translate to navigational charts. Chekhov announced from his station. I'm picking up a vessel in the indicated flight path. Cochrane asked. Target vessel speed? Cruising at warp factor 3. No indication that she's seen us. Cochrane leaned forward in the chair. Navigator, I want you to slowly drop speed and match course with the target vessel. Come up behind like a sensor echo. Sulu went to work, and the stars shifted as the Enterprise changed course. Without looking at Kirk, she asked, I presume you have a transporter team experienced in high-velocity transport. I want Mr. Spock to lead the team. Kirk understood that for whatever reason Cochrane was preparing for a fast flyby and transporter retrieval of Cochran. Spock left the bridge. Long moments passed. Then Chekhov called out, Vessel coming into range. On screen. The target vessel was a civilian liner, an elongated ovoid about half the length of the Enterprise, with 3 nacelles in the same configuration as the missing city of Utopia Planitia. Cochrane continued to give orders. Take us into transporter range, Navigator. Mr. Spock, stand by for emergency transport. Lock onto human life signs on the target vessel. Kirk couldn't stand it any longer. Cochrane was going by the book, but it wasn't enough. May I make a suggestion, Admiral? Cochrane looked at Kirk. Say what you have to, Captain. If the liner is in the hands of Orion pirates, where's their original ship? Cochrane tightened her grip on the arms of the chair. I presume it's docked on the liner's hangar deck. Do you have a recommendation? Full sensor sweep of the surrounding area. Cochrane pushed herself out of the chair. Why not fire a photon torpedo across their bow and really let them know we're here? Captain, you are attempting to warn the enemy. Spock's cool voice came from the speakers. I've detected 83 humans aboard the liner, Admiral. Do you wish me to transport them all? Sulu suddenly interrupted. Unidentified warp vessel closing. Her weapons are preparing to fire. Cochrane dropped back into the command chair. Warp 7! Take us out of here! Then Chekhov reported. Enemy vessel has fired. Impact in 8 seconds. Cochrane looked at Sulu. Navigator, come about. Concentrate power in the forward shields. Sulu glanced over his shoulder in alarm. Kirk had reached his limit. Belay that order. Drop to impulse on my mark. Sulu smiled as he turned back to the console. Aye, aye, sir. Impact in 4 seconds. 3, 2... Kirk hammered his fist in empty air. Mark! Sulu slammed his hand over his controls, and the ship lurched as she dropped to sublight, the instant the enemy's phaser fire hit. The ship rumbled, shook, but Kirk could tell from the way she absorbed the blow that she had resisted damage. The Admiral hit the intercom switch on the chair arm. Security! To the bridge! Admiral, if we had taken that blast with full power on our forward shields, shield capability would have dropped 50%. The case could be made that you were deliberately trying to sabotage the Enterprise's defenses. That's ridiculous. I was putting us in position to return point-blank fire. Kirk ignored her and gave the orders. Maximum warp. Don't give it time to come about. Ready, phasers? Fire all banks. The twin strands of glowing blue energy erupted through space, converging toward the glowing orange light of the enemy. Chekhov's fist went into the air as he exclaimed, Direct heat! Kirk stepped back from the command chair. Now that the ship is safe, Admiral, where were we? You were leaving the bridge. Kirk stepped in close to the Admiral. There's no need to make this harder than it already is. Command's not going to have any trouble seeing that I stepped in to save the ship when you endangered her. Now let me save Cochran. Cochrane drew in a ragged breath, and Kirk could see her struggle to remain calm. How can I know that's what you intend to do? Why wouldn't I want to save Cochran? You could be involved in this whole business, the conspiracy. What conspiracy? Cochrane stared him in the eyes. You're either telling the truth or you're even better than Starfleet thinks you are. Chekhov turned to Kirk. Captain, we're coming up on the liner. She's firing her navigational phasers at us. No damage to shields. Cochrane stood up. Captain Kirk, I'm ordering you to bring Zefram Cochrane safely aboard this ship. I now turn over command of the Enterprise to you. Kirk took the chair. It was like coming home. Mr. Chekhov, take us to 500 meters. I want pinpoint hits on the liner's navigational phaser emitters. Low power. No damage to the interior. Uhura, open hailing frequencies. Tell the city of Utopia Planitia to prepare to receive a boarding party. But as Uhura transmitted her message, Sulu said, Captain, I'm picking up venting of interior atmosphere. Someone has opened an airlock on the liner. On screen. The side of the liner sprang up into full magnification. Kirk instantly saw what had happened. The struggling form of a human drifted away from an open airlock. Spock, get a fix and beam him in. Whoever has been ejected from the ship is within the navigational shield, sir. The transporter cannot save him. Uhura broke the silence of the bridge. Captain Kirk, the liner is responding to our hail. The face of the enemy appeared on the main screen, and the enemy was a Klingon whose dark face was distorted by his forced smile. Greetings, Captain Kirk of the USS Enterprise. Kirk snarled back. Save it. Drop your shields and let us beam in the poor bastard you blew out the airlock. The Klingon widened his eyes insincerely. Ah, you noticed that, did you? Drop your shields now. And put myself at your fabled Terran mercy? Come now, Captain, I may be Klingon, but that doesn't make me stupid. We have other matters to discuss. Kirk had never run across a Klingon who liked to talk. Shut him down, Uhura. The screen jumped back to a view of the liner, and Admiral Cabrini asked Kirk, Aren't you going to negotiate with him? Klingons don't negotiate, Admiral. He's just stalling for time. He'd never make it back to the Empire in that liner. He must be heading for a rendezvous point. McCoy leaned forward on the rail circling the upper level. Do you think that unidentified ship we destroyed was his ride home? Possibly. But he's bound to have a backup plan. The question is, when does it go into effect? Kirk turned his chair around to face the companion. Companion, is the man near? The man continues. Part of me wishes to tell you he is in the ship before us. Kirk stared at the liner on the screen. How could he save one person from a ship filled with hostages and a bloodthirsty Klingon who wouldn't balk at killing everyone? Admiral Cabrini, do you feel up to negotiating with a Klingon? I thought you said Klingons don't negotiate. They don't. You'll just be buying time so I can follow my orders and rescue Mr. Cochran. He guided the confused Admiral to the command chair. Play it straight with him, but don't let on in any way that you know about Cochran. I'll be in the Auxiliary Control Center. He turned to the command console. Mr. Chekhov, Mr. Sulu, report to me there as soon as your replacements arrive. Dr. McCoy, companion, please accompany me. Admiral Cabrini, you have the con. Buried deep within the decks of the Enterprise, the Auxiliary Command Center was the ship's backup command facility. From it, all basic command functions could be controlled in the event the main bridge was damaged or lost. But in this case, the main bridge was serving as the backup of a diversion carried out for the Klingon commander of the hijacked liner. Just over an hour after Kirk had left the bridge, he was minutes away from enacting his plan. Mr. Sulu, are you ready with the tractor beams? Target sites located, Captain. Mr. Chekhov? Chekhov's hands were poised over his controls. Torpedoes armed. Phasers ready for cold start. Let's make this one for the history books. Mr. Spock, you may begin. On the screen, 100 meters out from the forward tip of the Planitia, Kirk saw a tiny twinkling dot of transporter energy just ahead of the liner's invisible shield boundary. A second later, the image disappeared in a flare of orange light, as the transported photon torpedo detonated. With the liner's shields at full force, Kirk knew the explosion would not harm it. But those shields would be disrupted. The prefab shelter had been torn apart by phaser blasts. Spock checked his tricorder. He pointed to a rise in the distance. Note the disturbance in the soil and that small hill. I surmise a craft of some kind landed there, most likely armed with a phaser cannon. Spock squinted at his tricorder screen. Doctor, are you still detecting no life signs? McCoy broke out his medical tricorder. I don't know. There appears to be something in the wreckage of the shelter which is alive. Barely. Kirk sprinted toward the shelter. In the melted doorway of the shelter he called out. A moan came from the back, and something moved within the darkness. A slender, pale hand fell out. Kirk dropped to his knees and reached in to gather the small figure in his arms. He stood up, with the limp form of Federation Commissioner Nancy Hedford in his arms. Companion, I heard your message. I've come for you. Where's Zefram? The companion's eyes fluttered open at the name. Zefram. They took the man, and he is gone. We are alone. How do you bear it? Kirk felt her frail body tremble in his arms, and looked at McCoy in alarm. I can't tell you why she's still alive, Jim. She was hit by a beam set to kill. Kirk looked at his officers and made his decision. We can't keep this to ourselves any longer. McCoy agreed. She must be treated on the Enterprise. But Spock disagreed. She draws her life from this place, Doctor. She cannot remain apart from it. Damn it, Spock, if I can't stabilize her, it won't matter where she is. McCoy turned to Kirk. Jim, if I keep her in isolation, we can probably avoid Admiral Cabrini hearing any mention of Cochran. But I've got to treat her up on the Enterprise. Bones, the Admiral can't be our main concern now. Call for a beam-up. And, Mr. Spock, I want a full security detail down here to investigate. McCoy spoke into his communicator. Enterprise, 3 to beam up at these coordinates. Mr. Spock is staying on the surface. Alert sickbay. We have a medical emergency. Kirk shifted his grip on the companion's unconscious form. She felt so fragile. He was afraid she might break in his grasp. On the Enterprise, above the medical bed in sickbay, the companion's pulse was regular though weak. McCoy had worked his magic so that there was color in her face again, but the bandage over her phaser-damaged eye attested to the seriousness of her condition. As Kirk held her hand, she told him what happened. They came for him at night. A ship landed not far on the hill. Zefram was so happy, so excited. He thought it might be you, Captain Kirk. Kirk squeezed her thin hand. Do you know who they were? Part of us does not, but part of us says Orions. Was Zefram alive? Did he continue? The companion opened her eye and looked up to the ceiling of sickbay. The man continues. We can feel him still, but he is so far away. Could you take us to him? That question was crossing McCoy's line. Jim, you know she can't leave the planetoid? Kirk leaned closer to her. Companion, how long can you remain away from your home? A tiny march of days. 6. If we do not return in 6 days, we will not continue. Companion, talk to Nancy Hedford again. Wherever the man is, can this ship go to him and return here in 6 days? Yes, at your fastest speed. McCoy interrupted. This is insane, Jim. And what will you tell the Admiral? We'll tell the Admiral we're searching for the missing liner, and we will be. It has to be connected with this. Spock needs another hour on the surface. But then, I want the companion working with Sulu in the Auxiliary Control Center. He can go over the charts with her. Work out some sort of mutually understandable coordinate system that we can feed into navigation without being on the bridge. McCoy nodded, though it was clear he wasn't pleased. Then he asked, "Who do you think has Cochran?" Kirk shrugged. "I can't answer that, Bones. What matters is that someone has Cochran, and they have him because of my log. Why they were even looking for him in the first place, I don't know. Why Admiral Cochrane is interested in all this, I don't know. But what I do know is that we're going to find Cochran and we're going to free him. Chances are that Cochran's the one who can answer all of our questions." A short time later, when Kirk stepped out of the turbo-lift and onto the bridge of the Enterprise, his chair wasn't empty. Admiral Cochrane still sat in it. "How's the patient? Still in a coma?" The way she asked the question left Kirk no doubt that she did not believe McCoy's diagnosis. But still, the Admiral had made no attempt to see Nancy Hedford herself. "The doctor thinks she'll recover. She's already come back from the dead once, Captain. I have no doubt she will be able to throw off the effects of exposure just as easily." Then the Admiral stood and indicated the turbo-lift. "Captain Kirk, join me." When the turbo-lift doors shut, Cochrane stood with her hands behind her back. "Computer, take this car out of service." The car stopped, and Cochrane faced the captain with a penetrating stare. "Zefram Cochrane was down there, wasn't he?" Kirk had already made up his mind not to be surprised by anything the Admiral might say. "You do realize Zefram Cochrane was born on Earth in the year 2030. If he's anywhere, he would be 237 years old." Cochrane's eyes narrowed as she regarded Kirk with suspicion. "Captain, I am ordering you to tell me, was Zefram Cochrane present on that planetoid 6 months ago? And if so, where is he now?" The inevitable had arrived, and Kirk obeyed. "On Stardate 3219.8, Mr. Spock, Dr. McCoy, Commissioner Nancy Hedford and I met Zefram Cochrane on the planetoid we're orbiting." Cochrane folded her arms and leaned back against the wall of the turbo-lift. "What was his condition?" "Excellent. His ship was diverted by the energy being who lives on the planetoid." Cochrane's eyes widened. "There is an energy being?" Kirk nodded. "The name Cochran gave her is the Companion. She somehow rejuvenated him. The Companion subsequently merged with Commissioner Hedford, moments before Sakuro's disease claimed her. They have since become a single life form." "To be candid, Kirk, I thought you were making up all that crap." "We were simply trying to respect Mr. Cochrane's wishes not to be disturbed." "Unfortunately, Captain, Mr. Cochran no longer has that luxury. Do you know where he is now?" "No, but the Companion does." "Can she take us to him?" "Possibly. By all indications below, it appears that someone, unfriendly, learned of Cochrane's presence on this planetoid by reading my personal log, then came after him and kidnapped him. Do you know who that might be?" Cochrane shook her head. "If I knew, any suspicions I might have are classified. You're going to have to trust me just a bit longer. Now let's get this lift back in service and get the Companion up on that bridge. Right now, Zefram Cochrane holds the future of Starfleet in his hands, and I want him before anyone else gets to him. Do I make myself clear, Captain?" Kirk smiled noncommittally. He had no intention of being cooperative with someone who might be out to undermine the Federation. But there was no need to tell the Admiral that. Unless it came time to arrest her, of course. The Enterprise blazed through space so that the stars were rainbow smears of light around her. For now, Kirk stood at the Admiral's side, eyes fixed on the screen. The companion, wearing a standard blue technician's jumpsuit, sat behind him on the upper level. In a chair at Spock's science station, she was guiding the Enterprise's course by her inexplicable contact with Cochran, which Sulu had managed to translate to navigational charts. Chekhov announced from his station.
"I'm picking up a vessel in the indicated flight path."
Cabrini asked.
"Target vessel speed?" "Cruising at warp factor 3. No indication that she's seen us."
Cabrini leaned forward in the chair.
"Navigator, I want you to slowly drop speed and match course with the target vessel. Come up behind like a sensor echo."
Sulu went to work, and the stars shifted as the Enterprise changed course. Without looking at Kirk, she asked,
"I presume you have a transporter team experienced in high-velocity transport. I want Mr. Spock to lead the team."
Kirk understood that for whatever reason Cabrini was preparing for a fast flyby and transporter retrieval of Cochran. Spock left the bridge. Long moments passed. Then Chekhov called out,
"Vessel coming into range."
"On screen." The target vessel was a civilian liner, an elongated ovoid about half the length of the Enterprise, with 3 nacelles in the same configuration as the missing City of Utopia Planitia. Cabrini continued to give orders.
"Take us into transporter range, Navigator. Mr. Spock, stand by for emergency transport. Lock onto human life signs on the target vessel."
Kirk couldn't stand it any longer. Cabrini was going by the book, but it wasn't enough.
"May I make a suggestion, Admiral?"
Cabrini looked at Kirk.
"Say what you have to, Captain. If the liner is in the hands of Orion pirates, where's their original ship?"
Cabrini tightened her grip on the arms of the chair.
"I presume it's docked on the liner's hangar deck. Do you have a recommendation?" "Full sensor sweep of the surrounding area."
Cabrini pushed herself out of the chair.
"Why not fire a photon torpedo across their bow and really let them know we're here? Captain, you are attempting to warn the enemy."
Spock's cool voice came from the speakers.
"I've detected 83 humans aboard the liner, Admiral. Do you wish me to transport them all?"
Sulu suddenly interrupted.
"Unidentified warp vessel closing. Her weapons are preparing to fire."
Cabrini dropped back into the command chair.
"Warp 7, take us out of here."
Then Chekhov reported.
"Enemy vessel has fired. Impact in 8 seconds."
Cabrini looked at Sulu.
"Navigator, come about. Concentrate power in the forward shields."
Sulu glanced over his shoulder in alarm. Kirk had reached his limit.
"Belay that order. Drop to impulse on my mark."
Sulu smiled as he turned back to the console.
"Aye, aye, sir. Impact in 4 seconds. 3, 2...
Kirk hammered his fist in empty air.
"Mark!"
Sulu slammed his hands over his controls, and the ship lurched as she dropped to sublight, the instant the enemy's phaser fire hit. The ship rumbled, shook, but Kirk could tell from the way she absorbed the blow that she had resisted damage. The Admiral hit the intercom switch on the chair arm.
"Security, to the bridge." "Admiral, if we had taken that blast with full power on our forward shields, shield capability would have dropped 50%. The case could be made that you were deliberately trying to sabotage the Enterprise's defenses." "That's ridiculous. I was putting us in position to return point-blank fire."
Kirk ignored her and gave the orders.
"Maximum warp. Don't give it time to come about. Ready, phasers? Fire all banks."
The twin strands of glowing blue energy erupted through space, converging toward the glowing orange light of the enemy. Chekhov's fist went into the air as he exclaimed, "Direct hit!" Kirk stepped back from the command chair. "Now that the ship is safe, Admiral, where were we?" "You were leaving the bridge." Kirk stepped in close to the Admiral. "There's no need to make this harder than it already is. Command's not going to have any trouble seeing that I stepped in to save the ship when you endangered her. Now let me save Cochran." Cochrane drew in a ragged breath, and Kirk could see her struggle to remain calm. "How can I know that's what you intend to do?" "Why wouldn't I want to save Cochran?" "You could be involved in this whole business, the conspiracy." "What conspiracy?" Cochrane stared him in the eyes. "You're either telling the truth or you're even better than Starfleet thinks you are." Chekhov turned to Kirk. "Captain, we're coming up on the liner. She's firing her navigational phasers at us. No damage to shields." Cochrane stood up. "Captain Kirk, I'm ordering you to bring Zefram Cochrane safely aboard this ship. I now turn over command of the Enterprise to you." Kirk took the chair. It was like coming home. "Mr. Chekhov, take us to 500 meters. I want pinpoint hits on the liner's navigational phaser emitters. Low power. No damage to the interior. Uhura, open hailing frequencies. Tell the city of Utopia Planitia to prepare to receive a boarding party." But as Uhura transmitted her message, Sulu said, "Captain, I'm picking up venting of interior atmosphere. Someone has opened an airlock on the liner." "On screen." The side of the liner sprang up into full magnification. Kirk instantly saw what had happened. The struggling form of a human drifted away from an open airlock. "Spock, get a fix and beam him in." "Whoever has been ejected from the ship is within the navigational shield, sir. The transporter cannot save him." Uhura broke the silence of the bridge. "Captain Kirk, the liner is responding to our hail." The face of the enemy appeared on the main screen, and the enemy was a Klingon whose dark face was distorted by his forced smile. "Greetings, Captain Kirk of the USS Enterprise." Kirk snarled back. "Save it. Drop your shields and let us beam in the poor bastard you blew out the airlock." The Klingon widened his eyes insincerely. "Ah, you noticed that, did you?" "Drop your shields now." "And put myself at your fabled Terran mercy? Come now, Captain, I may be Klingon, but that doesn't make me stupid. We have other matters to discuss." Kirk had never run across a Klingon who liked to talk. "Shut him down, Uhura." The screen jumped back to a view of the liner, and Admiral Cochrane asked Kirk, "Aren't you going to negotiate with him?" "Klingons don't negotiate, Admiral. He's just stalling for time. He'd never make it back to the Empire in that liner. He must be heading for a rendezvous point." McCoy leaned forward on the rail circling the upper level. "Do you think that unidentified ship we destroyed was his ride home?" "Possibly. But he's bound to have a backup plan. The question is, when does it go into effect?" Kirk turned his chair around to face the companion. "Companion, is the man near?" "The man continues. Part of me wishes to tell you he is in the ship before us." Kirk stared at the liner on the screen. How could he save one person from a ship filled with hostages and a bloodthirsty Klingon who wouldn't balk at killing everyone? "Admiral Cochrane, do you feel up to negotiating with a Klingon?" "I thought you said Klingons don't negotiate." "They don't. You'll just be buying time so I can follow my orders and rescue Mr. Cochran." He guided the confused Admiral to the command chair. "Play it straight with him, but don't let on in any way that you know about Cochran. I'll be in the Auxiliary Control Center." He turned to the command console. "Mr. Chekhov? Mr. Sulu? Report to me there as soon as your replacements arrive. Dr. McCoy, companion, please accompany me. Admiral Cabrini, you have the con." Buried deep within the decks of the Enterprise, the Auxiliary Command Center was the ship's backup command facility. From it, all basic command functions could be controlled in the event the main bridge was damaged or lost. But in this case, the main bridge was serving as the backup of a diversion carried out for the Klingon commander of the hijacked liner. Just over an hour after Kirk had left the bridge, he was minutes away from enacting his plan. "Mr. Sulu, are you ready with the tractor beams?" "Target sites located, Captain." "Mr. Chekhov?" Chekhov's hands were poised over his controls. "Torpedoes armed. Phasers ready for cold start. Let's make this one for the history books. Mr. Spock, you may begin." On the screen, 100 meters out from the forward tip of the Planitia, Kirk saw a tiny twinkling dot of transporter energy just ahead of the liner's invisible shield boundary. A second later, the image disappeared in a flare of orange light as the transported photon torpedo detonated. With the liner's shields at full force, Kirk knew the explosion would not harm it, but those shields would be disrupted and thrown into timing disarray. A moment later, a second transported torpedo detonated on the liner's stern. Sulu announced tensely, "Reading multiple airlock openings." The Klingon was repeating himself exactly as Kirk had gambled. Kirk saw dark figures struggling in the vacuum, more hostages sent to their deaths. But Kirk would not allow that. "Mr. Chekhov, now." A broad beam of cool blue phaser energy spread over the liner, hitting the liner's shields equally over half their area at once. Spread out to its widest beam width, the phaser burst would not be enough to harm anyone caught in it. The blue glow winked out like a light being shut off. Chekhov exclaimed to Kirk, "Shields down! Total failure!" At 17 seconds into the operation, multiple dots of transporter energy sparkled around the liner's airlocks, as the hostages set adrift were retrieved only 10 seconds after being exposed to the vacuum of space. As long as sensors could find targets, the Enterprise could beam aboard every living being on the liner within 30 seconds, well within the safety limits of vacuum exposure. At 21 seconds into the operation, narrow phaser beams shot out from the Enterprise under Chekhov's expert aim. The beams scorched the hull, weakening it. Instantly, the phasers were replaced by tractor beams that applied carefully calculated stress to key areas. All the liner's running lights winked out at once. Interior lights followed, and every window went dark. The city of Utopia Planitia came apart like an eggshell. Loose furniture, bedspreads, luggage, cargo modules all spun madly, glittering in the tractor beams. "Spock here, Captain. Transporter teams confirm positive lock on all personnel. We have retrieved everyone." Kirk stood up and looked at the companion. "Is the man here?" Tears welled up in the companion's uncovered eye. "Oh, Captain, the man is with us." Kirk hit the ship's public address control. "This is the captain. To all passengers of the Planitia. Will Mr. Cochran please make himself known to security personnel?" Lieutenant Kyle reported a moment later from Emergency Transporter 3. "Captain Kirk, sir. I have a gentleman here identifying himself as Mr. Cochran." "Escort him to the bridge, Mr. Kyle. Tell him the companion will meet him there." Suddenly the Enterprise shuddered as a barrage of explosions echoed through her. Kirk looked at the flickering view screen. The help the Klingon commander had been expecting had finally arrived. A Klingon battlecruiser hung in space beyond the spinning wreckage of the Planitia. Kirk and his officers rushed to the bridge with a companion. When the lift doors opened on the bridge, the companion flew at Cochran. All thought left him as he embraced her.
"Oh, Zefram, we were so frightened, but now you're with us."
With the companion still nestled close at his side, Cochran saw Kirk in the center chair. Kirk glanced at him, then moved his eyes back to the screen. "Glad to have you aboard, Mr. Cochran. My apologies for the rough ride." Cochran pointed at the view screen. "What is that?" "A Klingon battle cruiser. What is it after?" "It's after you." Cochran gazed at Kirk with inexpressible sadness. "They're not Klingons." An old woman stepped up to him. She was dressed in a gold-shirted uniform like Kirk's. "Am I to take it you know who's after you, Mr. Cochran?" Cochran looked at Kirk, seeking direction. "This is Fleet Admiral Quarlo Cabrini. She has taken quite an interest in your career after your disappearance. If you can help clear up any of her questions, it will probably help all of us." "I had thought that the optimum movement would have died out by now." Kirk looked puzzled. "The optimum movement? Mr. Cochran, its leaders were captured and tried. It's as dead as the humpbacked whale." "It was still around in 2117, Captain. They killed my wife on Centauri B2. They were coming after me next." "That's why you left? To die in space?" Cochran felt the companion draw closer to him. Sulu turned to Kirk. "Sir, we're being scanned again." The Admiral ignored Cochran for a moment. "Kirk, how long are we going to hang here doing nothing?" "Admiral, we've got a cracked dilithium crystal, damage to the port nacelle strut, 30 crew injured, and weapons capability less than 60%. My guess is that the only reason they didn't press the attack is because they don't know if we have Cochran on board or not." "Mr. Cochran, why was the Optimum movement so eager to hunt you down in your own time? And how could that reason possibly be valid today, 150 years later?" Cochran hesitated, and before he could answer, the Admiral stepped in front of him. "Mr. Cochran, the answer to that question is classified, and I insist you do not answer it." Cochran faced the Admiral. "I am not part of whatever organization you represent. I can say whatever I want about my work." The Admiral stepped closer to him. "The organization I represent is called Starfleet, Mr. Cochran, and this is a Starfleet vessel. You will not answer Captain Kirk's question." Cochran glared down at the woman, forgetting her age. He had had enough. He told Kirk, "The warp bomb." The Admiral quivered with fury. Kirk quickly tried to mollify her. "Admiral, everyone knows the warp bomb is an illusion, an engineering impossibility." The Admiral snapped her head around to confront Kirk, and seeing the look that passed from her to the captain, Cochran had the horrible realization that both he and the captain had been wrong. The warp bomb was not an impossibility. Somehow, in this future time, it had become real, and it was still a secret. The Admiral closed her hand into a trembling fist. "You traitor, Kirk! You're part of it, aren't you? That's why those ships haven't attacked. Because they know you're going to turn him over." The Admiral launched herself at Kirk. Kirk grabbed her wrists. Mr. Spock moved behind the Admiral and put his hand on her shoulder. Suddenly she groaned, arched back, then fell limp into Spock's arms. Cochran thought the Admiral had worked herself into a heart attack.
Shouldn't you start CPR?
Kirk allayed Cochran's fears.
It's not a heart attack, it's a Vulcan nerve pinch. She'll be fine. Could anyone tell me what all that is about?
Spock answered after Kirk nodded to him to do so.
Apparently some conspiracy afoot, which involves both you and a purported warp bomb. The senior officers of this ship were concerned that the Admiral was part of that conspiracy. On the other hand, it appears that she was equally worried that we were in fact the conspirators. So, who are the conspirators? Presumably, whoever is on that ship.
Cochran studied the battle cruiser.
Let them know I'm here, then they won't attack.
Kirk nodded thoughtfully.
If you had secrets, depending on how valuable or how dangerous, our opponents might conclude it is better to kill you than to allow you to remain in our hands. Do you have any such secrets, Mr. Cochran? None that I know of. So you never worked on a warp bomb? I think those rumors go back to a warp research failure at Kashishawa Station back in the 2050s.
Spock entered data at the computer station and reported.
Captain, there is no record of an accident at Kashishawa Station in the 2050s or at any time.
Cochran protested.
But that's impossible. I was 2 kilometers from the test dome when it disappeared.
Kirk looked at Cochran.
Curious, sir, and curiouser. It used to be known to Starfleet, but now it's no longer in the computer. A worm program, Mr. Spock?
Kirk saw the confusion on Cochran's face.
In the past few days, we've discovered that Starfleet's main computer system may have been infected with programs designed to locate references to you and to selectively erase elements of your work.
It made no sense to Cochran.
But why? Theory, Spock? In the past, there have been many instances where a scientific discovery has been overlooked at the time data were accumulated, only to come to light when the data were re-examined.
Cochran didn't like the sound of that at all.
You're saying that a warp bomb is possible? That whatever happened at Kashishawa Station wasn't what I thought it was?
Spock nodded.
That is possible.
Suddenly Chekhov called out.
Captain, a second Klingon cruiser is approaching at high warp speed.
Kirk spoke over his shoulder.
What do you say, Mr. Spock? Their commander has arrived to take care of things personally? That would be a logical development, Captain.
Uhura turned to Kirk.
Captain, they are finally responding to our hails, requesting visual communication. Show us their visual, Lieutenant, but only send audio. This is Captain James T. Kirk of the Starship Enterprise to unidentified Klingon cruisers. You are in Federation space without authorization. You must identify yourselves.
The image on the screen changed, no longer showing the 2 battle cruisers. The face on the screen was as far out of time as Cochran himself. The commander of the alien force was Adric Thorson.
Give me Cochran, and I will spare your ship.
Cochran could see that Thorson was humanoid, but it was difficult to judge what form his body took. His leathery skin was deeply lined, his hair was icy white, cut almost to bristle length.
I repeat, identify yourself.
The commander's face changed into what Kirk finally recognized to be an attempt at a smile.
Ask Cochran who I am.
Sulu announced to Kirk.
Leftmost ship's phasers powering up, Captain.
Cochran hit the audio switch at Kirk's side and spoke before Kirk could stop him.
Shut it down, Thorson. I'm here.
Thorson's face revealed recognition and hatred. Kirk heard Spock approach from behind.
Captain, computer records show that Colonel Adric Thorson died in a resistance attack in London, just prior to the onset of World War III. Only part of Adric Thorson died at Battersea Stadium.
He held up a fist. It was mechanical, three-fingered, the color of burnished geranium. The image on the view screen changed so more of Thorson was revealed. What flesh remained to him was supported on a flattened exoskeleton, which ended at his shoulders. Both arms were mechanical, each with two elbow joints. Woven through the intricacies of the open chest, Kirk could see hanging pockets of skin, connected by glistening, pulsating cords, as if human organs still remained, removed from no longer necessary muscle and bone. Spock was fascinated.
"It appears to be outlawed Grigari nanotechnology, Captain."
Kirk knew that the Grigari molecular assembly devices could expertly weave together flesh and steel, uniting living nervous systems directly with computer-controlled circuits. The flesh of most life forms would eventually reject the filaments, so the devices were programmed not to stop. As each layer of living cells became damaged, they were stripped away and replaced by more filaments of circuitry and steel. Eventually, the living body was replaced with an inexact mechanical substitute. Cochran looked at Thorson in disgust.
"What have you become?"
"What you have made me. I have become optimal."
"I don't care what you think you are. The optimum movement is over. You lost."
"I lost but a battle. The war continues, and only you, Cochran, can stop it. You know the secret of the ultimate deterrent, and Starfleet knows. I looked into their computers, sent little strands of myself into their circuits."
Spock glanced at the captain.
"I believe he's implying that he used Grigari nanocomponents to infiltrate Starfleet's main computer system."
"I am the system now. I was always meant to be the system. And every time I reached out into the system, Starfleet moved against me to classify more and more that had to do with Kashishawa Station."
Kirk could see exactly how the scenario played out. Thorson had created worm programs to search out information about the Kashishawa Station incident. Cabrini had discovered that, and concerned that there was a chance that a warp bomb might exist, she classified the results of Cochran's early research. But her response only confirmed what Thorson had believed, intensifying a secret war, all fought over an ancient experiment that meant nothing. Thorson addressed Kirk.
"Give me Cochran."
"Very well. But I want your word as an officer that you will then allow me to withdraw with the other rescued passengers."
The companion shouted as she realized what Kirk was doing.
"We will not allow you to endanger the man."
Kirk killed the transmission.
"Companion, I will not harm the man. Mr. Spock, we'll need a decoy in a few minutes. Have a shuttlecraft prepared for maximum warp on automatic pilot. But first, find us somewhere to go where we can disappear. Then chart a course for the shuttlecraft directly opposite that heading. Mr. Chekhov, when I give the order, I want what's left of the planitia blasted to plasma to create a sensor screen. Immediately after, we will concentrate all phaser fire on the bridge of the leftmost battlecruiser. With luck, they'll soon be leaderless, and won't take action without Thorson's presence. Do you have a heading, Mr. Sulu?" "Yes, Captain. It's a singularity, number 65813. 6 hours at warp 7. According to the survey charts, it has an event horizon. Diameter is 800 kilometers.
Hope built in Kirk. A black hole could be just what he needed now.
"Mr. Spock, will there be sufficient relativistic distortions near the event horizon to disrupt sensors?" "Without question, Captain."
Kirk made his decision and committed his ship.
"Sulu, set course to the singularity. Uhura, open a channel to Thorson."
Channel open, sir. Colonel Thorson, we are taking Cochran to the transporter room. Which ship would you like us to beam him to?
Beam him to me.
Chekhov's next words were full of wonder.
Captain, he's dropping his shields.
Launch shuttle and fire phasers.
Registering hits, Captain, but impossible to tell their shield status.
Get us out of here, Mr. Sulu. Warp factor 7. Chekhov reported.
Captain, I have clear sensor readings around the Planitia wreckage. One cruiser crippled, sir. The other is staying within transporter range of the crippled vessel, sir. It appears they're beaming aboard the crew.
Kirk almost felt like relaxing. Each second the cruiser delayed chasing the Enterprise increased the odds of success. But then Chekhov announced,
Captain,
the cruiser is now in pursuit. It's not going after the decoy shuttlecraft. At its present velocity, the Enterprise will come under attack before she reaches the safety of the singularity. The first phaser volley struck Kirk's Enterprise 10 minutes before she had reached her destination. Uhura, do we have a response from Starfleet to our message? The Excalibur is en route. Priority 1, ETA 14 hours. What do you think, Mr. Spock? Can we elude that cruiser for 14 hours? For the entire period, our chances are virtually non-existent. And sublight maneuvers close to the Singularity's event horizon will exert a sizable strain on our structural integrity field. Scott called the bridge with a damage report.
Captain, we've lost a dilithium crystal. We cannot keep up with the power demands for more than another hour.
Any good news, Scotty?
Aye. When the structural integrity fails, we'll be flattened so fast we won't even know it.
Sulu announced to the bridge. Destination in 4 minutes. On the main view screen, they saw a luminous whirlpool of glowing gases and dust slowly expand as the Enterprise neared it, and in the center, right at the edge of the event horizon, was only a black disk. It marked the point at which the gravitational attraction of the singularity within accelerated everything to the speed of light, including light itself. It swallowed everything, pulling it endlessly down to the inconceivably dense singularity at its heart. Scott called from engineering.
Just so you know, Captain, I'm fresh out of miracles down here. The Enterprise was never meant for this kind of strain. She leaves orbit in the next 30 minutes, or she doesn't leave at all.
Cochran stood up. Thorson wants me, so turn me over. It's the only way. The companion turned to Kirk.
Captain, if the man were not here, would you be safe?
There is a chance that Thorson would leave us alone. Why?
Then let us hide away from you, as we hid with a man so long ago. Part of me remembers what it was like to fly among the stars.
The companion pointed to the dark ellipse on the view screen.
We can hide there, where light stops.
Kirk turned to the companion. If you go there, you can never come out.
Part of me knows that place. Part of me knows it can be done.
She pulled herself close to Cochran.
Zefram, please. In a shuttlecraft we can go in to the place where light stops, and we can come out again. I know this to be true.
Kirk looked at Cochran. Do you trust her, Mr. Cochran, with your life? With all my heart, Captain Kirk. Kirk made his decision. He did the unthinkable. He put the fate of the Enterprise in the hands of the companion. Minutes later, Cochran stood by the doorway of the shuttlecraft Ian Shelton with a companion. Spock stepped forward. You must leave now if this plan is to have any chance of success. Cochran stepped into the shuttlecraft. The companion followed. As they took their seats, Sulu's voice came from the shuttlecraft's control console.
Mr. Cochran, we're opening the hangar doors now. I'm going to fly you out on remote control and toward Thorson's ship. I'm going to keep control until we're sure that Thorson has scanned you and confirmed that you're on board. Then I'll initiate the autopilot as we've programmed it. Mr. Spock tells me that passage through the event horizon will be like breaking the sound barrier. The flight should smooth out considerably past that point.
The hangar doors disappeared to either side as the shuttlecraft slipped between them.
You're being scanned. I'm switching you to an audio and visual signal directly to Thorson's ship.
Cochran glanced at the companion.
This will work, Zefram. Have no fear.
Adric Thorson appeared on the shuttlecraft's view screen.
I've thought of you each night since Battersea. There's still time to remake the worlds. Old dreams need not die. Order, salvation, red banners wave and black eagles fly. There can still be a bright future for humanity.
You missed your chance, Thorson. You're like I am, a dinosaur. We shouldn't be in this age.
This age will be remade in my image.
Sulu's voice returned.
Here you go. Make it look good, and we'll see you in 20 hours. Smooth sailing, sir.
Cochran screamed just as Spock had coached.
Enterprise! Enterprise, this is Cochran. Thrusters had malfunctioned. We're headed for the horizon. I can't control it.
Sulu's voice returned, transmitted so that Thorson could hear him as well.
Shuttlecraft, this is Enterprise. Stand by for tractor beam.
Just as Kirk had surmised, the next voice was Thorson's.
Stand back, Enterprise. Cochran is mine.
A blue glow came through the shuttlecraft's viewport. Cochran had been told to expect it. It was the radiation signature of a focused linear graviton beam from the Klingon cruiser. But just as Spock had calculated, it was almost impossible for gravitons to remain focused this close to the event horizon. The shuttlecraft's computer announced,
"Warning. Approaching event horizon. Impact in 20 seconds.
Then Cochran saw that the blue glow of the tractor beam did not diminish. Instead, it intensified. The companion turned to Cochran.
Zefram, that is wrong. Spock said the tractor beam would fail. We are being pulled away from the event horizon.
Cochran reached out his hand to the controls. He had to tell the Enterprise what was happening. They had to change the program, recalculate the trajectory inside the event horizon. A ready light glowed on the control console. Cochran heard the whine of the shuttlecraft's warp engines begin. He looked straight ahead, through the viewport. The blue glow of the tractor beam vanished. Darkness rushed at him, enormous, unstoppable, swallowing everything. Zefram Cochrane and the companion passed through the event horizon to the place where light stops. On the Enterprise bridge, Kirk turned to his science officer. "Spock, where is he?" "Sensors indicate the shuttlecraft has entered the event horizon, Captain. But at the angle it entered, it will spiral into the singularity within 10 of our subjective hours. How long will it seem to Cochran and the companion?" "As they approach the singularity, the time dilation will stretch out their final seconds to infinite length." Kirk felt as if he had been kicked. Stars would form and die, whole cultures evolve and become extinct, and Cochran and the companion would still be falling to their deaths. Spock suddenly pointed at the view screen. "Captain, Thorson is attempting to follow the shuttlecraft." Kirk wheeled in time to see the Klingon ship flash into the darkness of the event horizon. "Scanning for radiation, Captain. Scanning. No radiation. He made it. Spock, if Thorson can do it, we can. Calculate an angle of entry, now. Mr. Sulu, take us in. At 5 seconds, Sulu began a countdown. 2, 1, impact. Stardate 43920.6. Earth Standard May 2366. The sirens of a red alert filled the corridors of the USS Enterprise 1701-D. Captain Jean-Luc Picard sat on the bridge with his officers and stared at the view screen at the sight of a decloaking Romulan vessel. The Enterprise had been on course to Beta Z for the Biennial Trade Agreements Conference, when sensors perceived a decloaking pattern. Worf growled. Romulan weapons are not online. We have not even been scanned. Riker turned to Picard. That is not standard Romulan procedure. Worf reported. The Romulan vessel is hailing us, Captain. On screen, Mr. Worf. The view screen showed a Romulan commander who wore a standard military uniform. Her black hair was pulled back tightly to her skull in a warrior's queue. Captain Picard, I am Tarl, commander of this vessel. I apologize if I startled you. Picard turned to face Troy, his back to the screen. Counselor, is this a trap? Troy shook her head. I do not sense she means us harm. Picard turned back to the screen. Commander Tarl, I must ask for an explanation. A second window on the view screen opened beside the Romulan commander, displaying a mechanical object. Picard had a sudden flash of recognition and of fear. Whatever the object was, there was no doubt as to its origins. It had been created by the greatest threat the Federation had ever faced, the Borg. No member of the Federation had ever managed to lay hands on any sizable artifact of the Borg's alien manufacture. The object on the screen might just hold the secrets of how to defeat them and save the Federation from assimilation into the Borg collective. Picard knew that he had to acquire the artifact. He waited expectantly. Please, Commander Tarl, continue. The Romulan squared her shoulders, lifting her chin defiantly. I have stolen this artifact from my people. I wish to give it to the Federation in exchange for a ship and supplies for myself and my supporters. I'm not a traitor, Captain, but I know the threat the Borg represents to my people. I want your Federation scientists to study the artifact, to devise some kind of defense against those creatures, and to share it with us. Otherwise, the Romulan Star Empire will not survive. If so, Commander Tarl, why not just give it to us? The Romulan's face darkened in anger. Understand my situation. I have stolen from the Empire. There is no escape for me except what you can provide. Picard chose his next words carefully. Your proposition is extremely compelling, Commander, but I must confer with my staff before giving you what you have asked for. Then be quick about it. She disappeared from the screen. The giant warbird hung against the stars. Picard went to Troy. Is Commander Tarl telling the truth? For the most part, yes, I believe she is. But she is holding something back. Something harmful? I don't think so, Captain, but she is afraid of what will happen to her if her mission fails. Worf added his opinion. I see no need to try and second-guess a Romulan. She has said that there is an artifact. Let us demand to see it. There is the possibility that this is nothing but an elaborate hoax. That seems most reasonable, Mr. Worf. Put the Romulan commander back on screen. When Tarl appeared again, Picard laid out his conditions. Tarl looked impatient. Assemble a scientific team, then beam them to my hangar deck. The artifact is there. She made a curt gesture, and the transmission ceased. Picard turned to Riker and Troy.
Well, this should be most interesting. I've never seen the hangar deck of a warbird.
Riker stood up.
And you're not going to see it today. With all due respect, sir, there is no way I'm allowing you to beam over to a hostile vessel. We'll transmit images of the artifact as we examine it. Data, Worf, you're with me.
He touched his communicator.
Mr. LaForge, report to Transporter Room 4. Bring a field engineering diagnostic kit.
After the away team had transported to the warbird, Picard and Troy watched an image transmitted by a small optical sensor that Data carried. The warbird's hangar deck was at least 3 times the volume of the Enterprise's main shuttle bay. Data's voice came over the bridge communication system.
Commander Tarl is directing us to the artifact now. Can you see it?
Picard felt his heart quicken. The artifact was there, at least the size of 3 Federation runabouts crushed together. Troy smiled at Picard.
I can sense your enthusiasm without even trying, Captain.
Picard was not embarrassed to admit it.
The future safety of the Federation might be about to be dropped in our lab, Counselor.
Data transmitted his analysis.
Captain, initial scans confirmed the composition of the artifact closely matches that of the Borg vessel we encountered at System J-25. Wonderful data. May I speak with Commander Tarl?
The viewscreen image swung to the side until Tarl appeared.
Commander, can you tell me where you obtained this specimen? I obtained it when I took command of this vessel with a small group of supporters. Suffice it to say, a Borg vessel attacked one of our most distant outposts. At the height of the battle, a freighter managed to collide with a Borg ship, and some debris was knocked free. This artifact is part of that debris. That is all I can tell you.
LaForge's voice came over the communication system.
Captain, this chunk of machinery is in better shape than it looks, and I am picking up a low-level energy reading.
Picard grew anxious.
You're certain there are no defensive systems in the artifact which you might inadvertently trigger? Fairly certain, Captain. I'm going to try to squeeze in between 2 conduits here and take a look inside. But I'm almost positive that this is a legitimate piece of Borg technology.
For the next few minutes, little happened. Riker finally contacted Picard.
Sorry for the delay, Captain. Commander Tarl is here beside me, and I think we should go ahead and make our deal with her. But I also think you should probably take a look at the artifact yourself, just to confirm its condition.
Picard addressed Worf.
Lieutenant, as security officer, have you any objections to my coming aboard the Romulan vessel? Absolutely none, Captain. The vessel is secure.
Picard stood up and tugged at his tunic.
How extraordinary. What do you suppose they found over there?
Troy smiled at her captain.
There is only one way to find out, sir.
As Picard gazed into the warbird's cavernous hangar deck, his first impression was that the ship smelled damp. Commander Tarl stood before him, impressive in her battle uniform.
This way, Captain.
The artifact, partially hidden behind green scaffolding and in the glaring halos of encircling lights, was impressive. Picard smiled as he approached his away team.
I appreciate the chance to come aboard, Will, but it's so obviously of Borg manufacture that I'm surprised you found it necessary for me to be here.
Riker matched Picard's smile.
It's the interior we think you should see, Captain. Some unusual Borg components there.
Data emerged from the artifact.
Captain, there is a corridor inside. If you could come this way.
Picard didn't hesitate and climbed in after Data. Riker followed.
Around this corner, sir, is another artifact. It is our conclusion that neither the Borg nor Commander Tarl have realized what it is.
Picard shone his torch straight ahead. A patch of silver shone back at him. It was a metal panel with engravings. LaForge, to the preservers, was still unknown. When Picard and the away team once again faced Commander Tarl, he hoped that he had recovered enough from the incredible discovery within the Borg artifact that his voice sounded normal and calm.
Commander, I will make the following arrangements. To begin, immediate transport undercover for yourself and your crew to Starbase 718. There you will be provided with a Nautilus-class colony ship, fully equipped for the automated construction of a self-sustaining Class M world, farming and mining community.
Tarl stared at the deck plates and shook her head as if she could imagine nothing worse.
Farmers and miners? Other options are available, but they would require you to remain within the Federation.
Tarl unfolded her arms.
The Empire already knows what I have done, Captain. Your assistance is acceptable.
As Picard watched, Commander Tarl walked away. He turned to Riker.
So, number one, the only question remaining is how to get the artifact aboard the Enterprise. Geordi thinks that the transporter might subtly alter the device's structure. He thinks that using tractor beams from 2 shuttlecraft to tow it to the Enterprise would guarantee the object's safety.
Picard nodded. The conservative approach to transporting such an invaluable artifact was correct. After Picard and the away team had transported back to the Enterprise, LaForge was soon handling the ship-to-ship transfer.
Captain, the 2 shuttlecrafts have established tractor beam link-up on the artifact. We're ready to bring it aboard. Proceed when ready, Mr. LaForge.
On the view screen, the 2 shuttlecraft began to lift off the hangar deck. Picard could see the Borg artifact, now clear of scaffolding and lights, begin to rise, bathed in the shimmering blue glow of twin tractor beams. The shuttlecraft and the artifact began to move slowly forward, until they escaped the Warbird's bright interior lights and were framed by the wide hangar doors.
Captain, LaForge here. I'm back on the Enterprise. Shuttlecraft pilots advising 2 minutes to landing.
Data turned to Picard.
Captain, I am picking up an increased neutrino flux.
Suddenly, a second Warbird decloaked, and all phasers blazing flew for the Enterprise. The bridge shook as the first bolts of phaser fire splashed against the Enterprise's saucer section. Then the Warbird shot past the forward sensors and disappeared astern.
Picard to LaForge. Where are those shuttlecraft? 1 minute to docking, sir.
Picard turned to the tactical station.
Mr. Worf, extend shields around their shuttlecraft. Once the shields are established, beam in the pilots. Commander Riker, you are responsible for bringing the artifact in. Use cargo tractor beams directly on it, and abandon the shuttlecraft if you must, but get it aboard.
Worf looked up from tactical.
Captain, we are being hailed by the attacking vessel.
Picard was furious. He glared at the Romulan commander who appeared on the viewer.
Commander of the Federation vessel, you will withdraw or face destruction.
Picard ignored the Romulan's order.
You are in Federation space. You will lower your shields and prepare for boarding.
The commander appeared bored with Picard's bluster.
We have no quarrel with you. Withdraw so we may deal with our own affairs in our own way.
Riker announced from the shuttle bay.
Captain Picard, cargo aboard. We have recovered both shuttlecraft as well.
The Romulan's eyelids flickered slightly as he looked to the side, as if it had been the last name he had wanted to hear.
Captain Picard. I repeat, I have no desire to fight with you, but the ship you are misguidedly trying to protect is Romulan property. The commander you are defending is a traitor to the Empire.
Troy stood beside Picard.
He's telling the truth, Captain. He's not eager for a confrontation.
Worf interrupted.
Captain, Commander Tarl wishes to speak with you.
The view screen now displayed two images. Tarl to the right, the new commander to the left. Tarl hung her head as if in shame.
Captain Picard, I appreciate your offer of asylum, but I have come to understand that it is wrong of me to turn my back on my own people. Please, let me return without further violence.
The new commander gestured with open hands.
Captain Picard, you have heard the traitors speak with their own words.
Picard addressed the new Romulan commander.
To whom have I the honor of speaking? I am Traclomek. Will you withdraw, Captain Picard?
Picard ignored the question.
Commander Traclomek, the Federation has no desire to compromise the safety of the Empire, and we're willing to turn over Commander Tarl's vessel to you. However, we do wish to provide sanctuary to the commander, and however many of her crew wish to join her.
Completely unacceptable.
Instantly, Traclomek's image disappeared from the screen. Worf looked up.
He has gone to maximum shields. Romulan phasers coming online. Traclomek is firing.
The bridge lurched as phaser fire burst against the ship. At Picard's order, Worf launched photon torpedoes.
Sir, Traclomek must have been expecting an attack. He is engaged in evasive maneuvers.
Picard smiled.
He'll be mad as hell when he figures out we aren't going after him.
The Enterprise, less than half the length of Commander Tarl's warbird, was now protectively nestled in the curve of its main dorsal and ventral hulls. Picard acted quickly.
Transporter Control, commence emergency evacuation of Commander Tarl's crew.
The view screen image unexpectedly rippled, and Picard stared in horror as he saw Ensign McKnight and Data flutter as if they were no more than mirages on a desert's edge. Picard spun around as the distortion continued moving through the bridge. Data looked up from his board.
It appears Commander Tarl has cloaked her vessel, sir, and that the Enterprise is close enough to have been caught in the cloaking effect.
Worf confirmed Picard's hopes.
Captain, Traclomek's ship appears to have lost track of us.
Engineering to Captain Picard. We've got an emergency situation down here. Some kind of field distortion wave just passed through us. Whatever it was, it's disrupted the magnetic constriction elements of the warp core. We're going to have to shut down everything.
Shut it down, Mr. LaForge. But begin immediate emergency transfer of power from the impulse propulsion reactors to shields and phaser banks.
The bridge lights flickered and dimmed as the ship's main matter-antimatter reactors ceased operations. Data turned to Picard.
Captain, the plasma exhaust vented from our impulse engines will eventually provide Traclomek with means by which to locate us.
Picard's mind raced. On screen he saw Traclomek's warbird poised at relative stop. With only impulse engines available to the Enterprise, she couldn't run from Traclomek's warbird, and she couldn't fire her phasers for another 15 minutes. The bridge was silent, all eyes on the captain. Suddenly Picard saw the way.
Mr. Data, transfer all power to the structural integrity field. Mr. Worf, target the dorsal bridge spine of Traclomek's ship. Then feed those coordinates to the helm. Now.
Then Picard pointed his finger at the screen and gave an order that had not been heard aboard an Enterprise for centuries.
Ramming speed.
Instantly, the Enterprise sprang forward. Traclomek's warbird didn't have a chance. The leading edge of the Enterprise's saucer section hit the dorsal bridge spine of Traclomek's ship at 36,000 kilometers per hour. On the warbird's bridge, destruction was so swift that there was not even time for the crew to realize their fate. All the ship's gravitational containment fields failed at once in a massive implosion. In less than a second, There was nothing physical left of Tratlomek's ship, larger than an isolinear chip. Resolute, the Enterprise flew on. Riker stared at Picard with an expression the captain could not read.
When Starfleet hears about this, I don't know if they're going to give you a medal or a court-martial.
Worf grinned, baring his teeth as only a Klingon could.
It is an honor to serve with you, Captain Picard. Songs will be sung about what you did here today.
"30 minutes after the collision, the Enterprise's redundant systems had almost completely restored the ship to normal operation. Picard's Enterprise was whole, but she was also alone. No trace of Commander Tarl's warbird could be found. Picard wondered aloud to Riker.
It would make no sense for her to stay near a site where another warbird has been destroyed. Perhaps Commander Tarl really was serious about returning to the Empire to atone for her actions. Or else she has gone off on her own. It could be the idea of becoming a farmer, a miner, did not appeal to her.
Riker nodded.
I think what we should focus our attention on is that we now have both the Borg artifact and the preserver object on board.
Picard agreed. And 3 hours after the collision, with the Enterprise's warp core back online, Picard ordered his ship to make way for Starbase 324, heart of Starfleet Tactical's effort to develop a defense against the Borg. With the ship at peace, Picard joined LaForge in the main shuttle bay. By now, LaForge had completely removed the preserver object from the Borg artifact. Perfectly displayed against the stars that streaked to a vanishing point past the open shuttle bay doors, the preserver object seemed to glow with a polished silver sheen beneath the bright shuttle bay lights. Its graceful indentations and curves made it resemble a shaft of liquid cut from a magnificent wave of molten metal and frozen in a sparkling instant of time. Viewing it, Picard felt it was splendid. On the far side of the object, where Data and Wesley Crusher worked with elaborate molecular probes held against the object's surface, Picard saw what he could only consider an ugly scar that marred the object's beauty. LaForge pointed to a textured section of the scar.
You can't see it, but with my visor I can detect a pattern of microscopic holes, almost like wiring conduits. This is the interface area where the Borg artifact had tapped into the object to draw power. Data and Wesley are going over the undamaged surface to see if there are any interface areas that are intact.
Picard was intrigued.
Is it possible that the conduits used by the Borg to tap the object's power might also be used to link it with a computer?
LaForge looked thoughtful.
I could hook up a Type 3 interface connection between the ship's computer and the artifact in just a few minutes, sir. It won't tell us anything immediately, but at least we could start probing the object's circuit structure.
Picard nodded.
Make it so.
A half hour later, beside the preserver object, LaForge, Wesley, and Data had set up a portable engineering computer console. Finally, LaForge looked up from his tricorder.
We're getting positive signal strength from all microscopic conduits, sir.
Data spoke from his position at the console's controls.
I have established a program which will allow our equipment to probe each conduit in terms of signal strength and its interrelationship with other conduits.
Picard was pleased.
Any idea how long it might take? On the order of hours today, sir. I am now completing the connection.
Status lights flickered over the console's displays, and Data studied the readouts. Intriguing. The object is probing our equipment, the way we were trying to probe it. Picard reacted with alarm. Is the object attempting to download information? Data angled his head, eyes fixed on the display. It is unlikely. Riker's voice came from Picard's communicator.
Sir, the Enterprise has just changed course.
Under whose authority, Will?
That's just it, sir. No orders have been received or given. We simply changed course. And the helm no longer responds.
Picard looked at the universal connector attached to the preserver object. Disconnect the interface at once. Data quickly entered commands on the control surfaces. Sir, the interface no longer appears to recognize our abort commands.
Captain Picard, we're at warp 8 and continuing to accelerate.
Picard pointed to the universal connector. Wesley immediately saw what the captain meant and grabbed the monofilament fibers attached to the connector. The instant Wesley yanked on the fibers, sparks erupted, and he was flung back on the deck. The connector, now free, clattered on the deck plates. LaForge and Data rushed to Wesley's unconscious form. Picard touched his communicator. Number 1, what's our status?
We've just hit warp 9. All bridge controls are locked.
Wesley moaned as LaForge and Data succeeded in helping him to his feet. The scream of the Enterprise's engine still rose. LaForge ran to the captain's side. Sir, if something has taken over the computers and can control all the ship's systems, we have got to get out of the shuttle bay now. Picard was about to ask his chief engineer why, but then he became aware of the characteristic sputter of a force field being shut off, and he looked in horror at the hangar bay opening. The atmospheric containment field had been shut down. The wind began to howl as the bay began to explosively decompress. Picard felt himself yanked forward, feet sliding across the deck as the wind propelled him inexorably to the vacuum of space. Even as the stars called out for him, Picard felt a hand close on the back of his collar. Picard was held in place, and he knew why. Data. Picard twisted to see Data's other hand held Wesley Crusher firmly by the collar. LaForge had wrapped his own arms around Data's to grimly hold himself in place. The wind died, the air completely gone, and though artificial gravity still held them to the deck, only seconds remained to Picard, LaForge, and Wesley before the lack of oxygen claimed them. His body shuddered. He inhaled with one last spasmodic shudder and tasted air. Data had brought him inside a shuttlecraft. He was scanning the sensor readouts.
It would appear that whatever is controlling the Enterprise's computers has flooded the ship with anesthetizine gas.
Picard felt relief at that. He had feared that the entire crew had been exposed to vacuum.
Data, are we able to communicate with the bridge? All computer-mediated communication capabilities are offline, but we can transport to the bridge from the shuttlecraft.
Picard had thought of that possibility.
Check the corridors for security force fields.
Data did so, and found the force fields active. It would be impossible to beam directly to the bridge. Then Data paused.
Captain, it should be possible for me to maneuver this shuttlecraft outside the Enterprise to a position beside the bridge, so that we may beam in directly through the hull.
Picard told Data to go ahead with the plan. In a few minutes, with a barely detectable thud, the shuttlecraft made hard contact with the Enterprise's hull, directly behind the observation lounge. Picard adjusted the life sign sensors to scan the bridge only meters away, on the other side of the lounge. 6 unconscious bodies were present. Then he checked the shuttlecraft's medical locker. Among the hypospray ampules was an anesthetizine antagonist. The 3 of them would be safe from the gas effects, and the unconscious crew members could be roused. 2 minutes later, hyposprays in hand, Picard and Data materialized on the bridge. At once they began using their hyposprays on the unconscious bridge crew. Then Wesley and LaForge beamed over. By the time environmental systems were under manual control and the anesthetizine gas had been vented, Picard had briefed his bridge crew on what he believed had happened. The suspected preserver object had somehow downloaded an override program into the Enterprise's computers. Picard turned to Ensign McKnight. "Can you identify any likely destinations for us on this heading?" The young ensign called up a navigational display. "Our present heading will take us directly to this, Captain." On the screen, Picard recognized the classic glowing gas disk and twin ionized polar jets of a singularity. McKnight continued. "It's listed as the Cabrini object. We'll be there in just under 6 hours." Riker approached the screen. "Why would a 3.5 billion-year-old preserver device want to take us to a black hole?" Data said matter-of-factly, "Perhaps we should ask it, sir." Riker looked at him, bewildered, and Data explained. "The preserver object appears to have downloaded not just a program, but a personality matrix. It might be possible for me to interface directly with the computer, processor to processor." Data sat at a science station on the upper level, and LaForge adjusted the science station display to show a visual representation of a specific area of memory within one of the Enterprise's 3 main computer cores. Data would transmit to that section and see what response, if any, was forthcoming. Data cocked his head and gazed at the screen. "That is interesting. Something is generating a recursive feedback loop." LaForge looked at Data with concern. "Data, slow down your visual recognition subroutines. Don't let that feedback. Data?" Data was frozen in position, staring at the screen. LaForge placed both hands over the display, blocking the pattern. "Pull him away." Riker slapped both hands on Data's shoulders to haul him back from the screen. Picard moved in to help, but Data's right arm came back like lightning, his elbow driving into Riker's leg. At the same time, Data's left hand grabbed both of LaForge's hands, crushed them together, then twisted so that the engineer was thrown to the side. As the science station display screen went dark, Data turned away and slowly got to his feet. When Data spoke, his voice had a different quality, deeper, slower. "Better, much better, to have a body again, especially one without flesh." Picard stepped forward. "Identify yourself." Data, or the thing that had taken over Data, stared at Picard, then smiled, as if somehow amused. "I do not take orders from you, Captain Picard. You will take orders from me." Worf leapt onto the android, but its free hand shot out and knocked the Klingon over his tactical station. Then the android grabbed the captain by his collar. "If anyone else tries to interfere, the captain will die." Those crew members still on their feet stepped back. "A wise decision. Most optimal." He let go of Picard, and the captain staggered back, clutching at his throat. "Whoever you are, return Lieutenant Data to me at once." The android gave Picard a thin smile. "Lieutenant Data isn't here, Captain Picard. I am. You may call me Thorson." Riker wondered aloud what everyone was thinking. Who the hell is Thorson? "It's Colonel Thorson. The next one to forget that will die." Picard was sure he had heard the name of Colonel Thorson before. He had some recollection of the man as an underling in the period of upheaval directly preceding Earth's Third World War. Whatever kind of phenomena Picard was facing here, The personality matrix which had taken over the ship seemed no longer to be operating in the ship's computer system. If Data could be overcome, then there was a chance the Thorson personality could be defeated. Picard studied the android for a moment, then deliberately adopted a belligerent tone.
Colonel Thorson, I know you will not cause any damage to the Enterprise, because you need her to get to the black hole. And second, you won't kill anyone because you need us to operate her.
The android cupped his chin in a thoughtful pose.
Jean-Luc, just a friendly reminder. I don't need the Wesley child to run the ship. This body I wear doesn't need the doctor, and I certainly don't need the empath. That I do need to make an example of anyone, they'll be the first to die. Are there any other threats you care to make?
Riker, in pain from the injury to his leg, asked,
Why are you doing this? Do you honestly expect us to believe that you're Colonel Thorson from the Third World War?
I am more than Colonel Adric Thorson ever was. I contain the core of him, the best of him, spread out to realms undreamed of in his day. I have transcended the Thorson flesh and become the one true optimal.
He surveyed the crew.
I forgive your doubts. If you survive to serve me, you shall be soldiers in my army in the war to come. I shall remake this age in my image, peace in my time, salvation from chaos.
Picard stepped closer to the android.
Colonel Thorson, no planet in the Federation has been on the brink of war for decades. The optimum movement's backward, inhumane dreams of a society made perfect because every regimented member looks alike, behaves alike, and believes alike, was recognized for the hateful abomination it was, centuries ago, and rightfully abandoned.
The android looked around at Picard's crew in sarcastic amazement, as they regarded their captain with pride.
Captain, this is an argument I am destined to win, for one very simple, very self-evident reason.
Picard took another step closer, preparing to make his move.
Which is?
This.
The android's fist moved up so quickly that Picard never saw it coming. When Picard awoke, the lower half of his face felt numb. Dr. Beverly Crusher was leaning over him.
How are you feeling?
Picard blinked up at her, then started to sit up. On the main screen he saw the glowing gas spiral of the Cobranyi object.
Beverly, how long have I been out?
Almost 6 hours. He had me use a neural blocker on you.
Picard got to his feet.
But why am I allowed to awaken now?
We've arrived at the black hole, and there's another ship here.
The android looked at Picard and indicated the seat beside him.
Join me, Captain.
Are we about to rendezvous with your partners, Colonel Thorson?
The Romulans, Captain? The Romulans are just pawns. Commander Traklamek was even easier than you to convince that he had found an authentic preserver device.
So the object in the shuttle bay isn't what it appears to be?
The android shrugged.
Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I've been searching space for a long time, Captain, jumping from ship's computer to ship's computer, and it's surprising the things that can be found. Once I had contacted the Romulans and learned that they had their own reasons for seeking a Galaxy-class ship. I had only to add a power source and some appropriate circuitry to the object to get me passage on your ship.
What was Traklamek expecting out of all this?
What else? Your ship. We worked out an arrangement. If Traclomek could get me aboard the Enterprise, then I would seize control of it, send it into the neutral zone to initiate certain aggressive acts, and then make certain that he could capture it relatively intact. And in return, I told Traclomek that I knew where the rest of me was, and if he would take me there, appears to be. The android shrugged. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I've been searching space for a long time, Captain, jumping from ship's computer to ship's computer, and it's surprising the things that can be found. Once I had contacted the Romulans and learned that they had their own reasons for seeking a Galaxy-class ship, I had only to add a power source and some appropriate circuitry to the object to get me passage on your ship. What was Traclomek expecting out of all this? What else? Your ship. We worked out an arrangement. If Traclomek could get me aboard the Enterprise, then I would seize control of it, send it into the neutral zone to initiate certain aggressive acts, and then make certain that he could capture it relatively intact. And in return, I told Traclomek that I knew where the rest of me was, and if he would take me there, I could reunite with my own ship and be free to go home. Picard still wasn't any closer to understanding what the Thorson personality was after. What about Commander Tarl? She was Traclomek's wife. Those fools had visions of becoming proconsuls or some such together. So who is meeting us around the black hole? That's why I called you back from the void, Captain. I'm not expecting to find anyone around the black hole. I believe the ship is a Federation vessel, and I want you to deal with it. If it doesn't withdraw, I want you to destroy it. Picard asked O'Brien, "Do we have an identification of the vessel in question?" "None, sir." "Mr. Worf, open a hailing frequency." The main view screen image of the plasma jets and gas disk was suddenly replaced by a transmission from a Starfleet vessel. A young human captain sat in her command chair, brushing short hair from her forehead. "Hello, Enterprise. Captain Picard. Captain Bondar, USS Garneau. I knew this recovery operation was big, but I didn't know it was this big. Glad to have you along." Picard didn't recognize the woman, though she obviously knew him. "Greetings, Captain Bondar. We have no knowledge of any recovery mission. However, we are on a classified mission, and we require you to leave your position at once." On the Enterprise, the android tapped commands into his console, and the view screen went blank. "Phaser Banks online. Tactical officer will now target the Garneau." Worf looked at Picard. "Captain, I cannot fire on a Federation vessel." Picard turned to the android. "Why is it so important for us to be here and that ship not to be?" "The Enterprise will be going to hiding soon, and the fewer who know of her last location, the better. Now, Klingon, destroy that ship, or I will do it myself, and kill one of you as an example." Picard clenched his fists. "Mr. Worf, fire a warning shot across the Garneau's bow." A low-level burst detonated 1 kilometer in front of the Garneau. Worf then reported, "Captain, we're receiving an urgent hail." Bondar was on her feet, shouting into the viewer. "What the hell do you think you're doing, Picard? Back off now, or we will return fire." The android stood up in front of Picard. Picard saw his chance. He reached out for the android's back, but the android's hand moved in a blur and closed around Picard's right wrist. With a burning twist, Picard felt bones crack, and he cried out in shock. The android ordered Worf to fire, but Worf took his hands from the tactical controls. He refused to fire. Incoherent with rage, the android took over Worf's console, and the Enterprise's phasers fired. The bridge of the Garneau rocked with the hit it took. Picard called out, Captain Bondar, the Enterprise has been hijacked. It is no longer under Starfleet control. Withdraw at once.
This is a rescue operation, Picard. We cannot withdraw.
As Picard heard the android fire phasers again, he demanded, "Where is the other ship?" Bondar held on tightly as her command chair shuddered.
Beyond the event horizon. It's a science package Starfleet launched 99 years ago. There is a passenger on board it. He is crucial to the security of the Federation. He is...
The transmission ended without static, signifying a complete shutdown of the Garneau's communication system. But Picard now knew the real mission of the Thorson personality. "You want that passenger, don't you, Colonel? Whoever he is, he's from a century ago. You're from almost 3 centuries in the past. You're still fighting some war that ended generations ago." The android leered at Picard. "Very impressive, Captain, except that the war continues, and I will triumph." "How? By leaving the passenger inside the event horizon? Trapped forever?" The android slowly shook his head. "Oh, no, Picard. I came to rescue the passenger myself. I saw him go in there, and I intend to bring him out personally." The android looked past Picard. "Mr. O'Brien, status of the Garneau." "No readings." Picard asked, "Was it destroyed?" "This close to the event horizon, sir, I can't be sure. Half of our sensors are still offline." Picard stood helplessly by the android as he watched the new heading entered into the navigation controls. Picard looked up at the main screen. The giant dark ellipse of the event horizon curved across the bottom of the image, lit by blinding flashes wherever gas and dust and debris fell in. Absolute darkness filled the view screen. When the turbulence ended, Zefram Cochrane was aware only of the low whisper of the shuttlecraft's air circulators and the warmth of the companion's hand in his. He looked out through the forward windows and saw darkness, broken only by a faint blue glow to port. Cochrane smiled. "We survived." The companion returned his smile, and Cochrane felt the peace of this journey fill his heart. He marveled at Kirk and Spock and McCoy for devising this plan. Humanity had changed so much in his extended lifetime, become so strong. He could hear Micah Brock telling him that he should take credit for at least part of what happened to humanity, for giving them the stars. For a moment Cochrane was overcome by the path he had taken, from a child's dream beneath a tree on Earth to the uncharted dimension that lay within a black hole in space. He had arrived at such a simple destination, such a simple understanding. He said to the companion, "I love you." Her smile was answer enough. Then she glanced through the forward windows. "What causes that glow?" "Photons. We can see the blue shifted light beginning its fall." "But not all the light is blue, Zefram." Cochrane checked the aft view. He gasped. Directly astern, a Klingon battlecruiser raced straight for him. Even here, even now, there was no escape from the optimum. When the turbulence ended on Kirk's Enterprise, Spock announced, "We have tunneled through the event horizon." Kirk knew the Enterprise had done it again. "Spock, any sign of the shuttlecraft and the Klingon cruiser?" "I am switching all sensors to subspace ranging echo only." Instantly the main view screen came to life, with a collection of indistinct green splotches. "Analysis, Spock?" "In the upper left of the screen, I believe we are seeing sensor returns, indicating that both the shuttlecraft and the Klingon vessel survived the event horizon." "Range to Klingon vessel, Mr. Chekhov?" Captain, sensors indicate the Klingon vessel is more than 1 million kilometers away. Impossible. Diameter of this event horizon is only 800 kilometers. Spock explained. The quantum compression waves are to blame. They are distorting spatial dimensions. How can we deal with the waves to stop the Klingon? I would suggest a photon torpedo. Its onboard guidance system can perform necessary course corrections in flight. Spock, if we do destroy the cruiser, what might that do to the shuttlecraft? Shock waves will not propagate here faster than the relative velocity of the shuttlecraft. It will not be harmed. Mr. Chekhov, target the Klingon cruiser. Fire photon torpedo self-guided mode. Kirk watched as a tiny point of green appeared on the screen, then seemed to spiral in the general direction of the cruiser. The tiny green dot merged with the cruiser's silhouette, and then both were gone. Spock looked up. Tidal forces have reduced the ship to little more than a molecular mist. Then Cochran and the companion are safe? Only if we can adjust their trajectory and ours. For the moment, both our vessels are being drawn toward the linked singularities. Mr. Sulu, match trajectory with the shuttlecraft. At least we'll be able to beam them back aboard. Spock shook his head. There are too many temporal distortions, even at close range. Then we'll use tractor beams. If we are able to generate sufficient power. Kirk heard the unspoken message in Spock's tone. Are we going to be able to correct our trajectories, Spock? I do not believe we have the capability, Captain. We are too deep within the gravity wall. Chekhov called out. Sensors are picking up the presence of another vessel. It has just passed through the event horizon above us. The screen flickered. In the middle of the visual confusion was the smeared, irregular silhouette of the third vessel. It looked wrong. That's not a Klingon cruiser. Uhura, open hailing frequencies to that vessel. Warn them away from our trajectory. Too late, Captain. They've matched it precisely. Spock looked up from his science viewer. Captain, according to my calculations, that ship is from the future, and it is trapped in the same fatal trajectory we are. When the turbulence ended for Picard, it was as if the Enterprise had moved into the eye of some galactic hurricane. The main screen flashed with static as the sensors reset themselves. To the upper left were two blurred objects. One was only a dot of light, presumably the science package. But the second object was clearly a starship. Worf shakily called to Picard. The course we are on, we're heading for the singularity. The android looked at Picard. Just for the time being. There is a shuttlecraft we must rendezvous with, and then your mighty ship will take us back. LaForge shook his head. We'll never make it, Captain. The Cabrani object is a multi-singularity. The closer we get, the more that space will be compressed around us. It won't matter how much power we have for our engines. We just won't have enough space left to maneuver in. The android looked defiantly at Picard. I will not surrender. I must destroy him no matter what the cost. In frustration, Picard swung his left fist against the android's head. Give me back my ship! Slowly, the android rose from his position. I will kill you now, Picard. At least I'll die knowing that you've been stopped, swallowed forever by this black hole, exactly where you belong. Beverly Crusher stepped in front of Picard, medical tricorder in hand. Her son Wesley was beside her, carrying a first-aid kit. Can't you see the captain is delirious? She stopped suddenly, then turned her tricorder on the android. Oh my, I'm picking up a disturbing breakdown in functions. You're facing a major system shutdown. The android brought his eyes to bear on the tricorder. No. I am optimal. I am beyond the flesh. He snatched the tricorder from Crusher's hand and crashed to the deck immobile. Wesley Crusher stood behind him, a single finger extended. He had hit Data's off switch.
I never knew Data had an off switch.
Picard recovered with difficulty.
Worf, can you identify those vessels?
Sir, trajectory calculations indicate the vessel penetrated the event horizon from a point approximately 80 to 100 years in the past. Scanning for identification codes. Captain Picard, the other ship is the Enterprise 1701, and her captain, James T. Kirk, is hailing us. On Kirk's Enterprise, Uhura's clear voice rang out over the confusion of the bridge. Sir, I am picking up a Starfleet standard identification code from the vessel. Kirk and Spock locked eyes. A Starfleet vessel from the future. There was only one thing they could do. Then Chekhov called out.
I don't understand it, Captain. The other vessel is accelerating along our course.
Spock studied the readouts at his science station. Captain, I have detected a pattern to the compression waves rebounding between us and the linked singularities. It should be possible to time a maneuver such that the compression wave would move us and slingshot us around the singularity. And if we time the maneuver correctly, we should pass by the shuttlecraft closely enough to snare it with our tractor beam, taking Cochran and the companion with us. Kirk was pleased. Let's do it. Feed the coordinates to Sulu. Then Spock added, however, there is one other factor we must consider. In stealing spatial distortion from the other vessel, we will be accelerating them into the subspace event horizon beyond the ability of any technology to save them. Kirk sighed. So it's them or us. Is there no other way, Spock? If we were able to communicate with the other vessel, there would be another option. In 7 minutes, we will be coming up to a triple compression wave overlap pattern. If both ships were to maneuver together, at the moment the triple wave is exactly between us, we could both slingshot around each other, enabling us to exit the electromagnetic event horizon together. But the slightest miscalculation on the part of either ship will accelerate both our descents, with no hope of escape. Kirk looked away from the eyes of his crew to stare at the screen. The guarantee of his crew's survival at the cost of strangers' deaths, or the chance of cooperation which might lead to joint survival, or meaningless death. It was the ultimate command decision, the one he had been born to make. Mr. Sulu, prepare to initiate the triple wave maneuver on Mr. Spock's mark. Picard studied the 3 trajectories Ensign McKnight had brought up on the main screen. The first one of us to act gets away at the cost of the other's freedom. But if we cooperate, we both escape. Riker shook his head. But there's no way to know if there's anyone on that ship to cooperate with. Picard stared at the screen. Why was Kirk's Enterprise chasing the shuttlecraft? Someone was on it, someone vital to the security of the Federation. Picard made his decision. Captain Kirk is on that ship. He must be saved. The only way we know how to save him is to perform a risky joint maneuver that must be executed with precise timing. Wesley turned with an excited smile. Sir, if Captain Kirk is on the Enterprise, then Commander Spock is with him. He'll have figured out the maneuver. Ensign McKnight turned to Picard. Captain, we're coming up to our point of no return. Either we break away within the next minute, or we will have to wait for the triple compression wave. And that joint maneuver will be our last and only chance to escape. Picard's options were clear. It was the ultimate command decision. the one he had been trained to make. "Ensign McKnight, prepare to initiate the triple-wave maneuver on Mr. Worf's mark. Miss O'Brien, stand ready with tractor beams to catch the shuttlecraft as we pass." The triple compression wave moved through the shuttlecraft first, unfelt and unnoticed by Cochran and the companion. The wave then moved through Kirk's Enterprise, following close behind the shuttlecraft. Spock measured the wave, and he started the countdown. On Picard's Enterprise, Worf undertook the same countdown. When the wave reached the exact halfway point between the two ships, Worf and Spock both gave their signals at the same instant. On those signals, Sulu fired his impulse engines in full reverse, slowing Kirk's Enterprise just as McKnight fired her impulse engines for more forward velocity. Both ships used the energy in the wave to alter their courses in the tightly compressed space and swing past the black hole toward freedom. For a while, Kirk's Enterprise and Picard's Enterprise flew together, side by side. The shuttlecraft nestled between them. Protected together, protecting each other, the Enterprises escaped their fate. The event horizon loomed before them, and on Kirk's Enterprise, Spock determined that they were being drawn along the wrong world line, to a time that was not their own. On Picard's Enterprise, LaForge calculated the same. Kirk's Enterprise gently released her hold on the shuttlecraft. Just as gently, Picard's Enterprise took up the task. Minutes from the event horizon, the shuttlecraft safely exchanged, the ships parted. Kirk to his time, Picard to his own. They made their way back to their separate times and the destiny they served. The United Federation of Planets. When the stars burst like fireworks before Picard's eyes, he knew they had succeeded. "Mr. O'Brien, what is the status of the shuttlecraft?" "Two strong life signs, sir." "Will the tractor beam hold them till we get away from here?" "Yes, sir. For an hour or so at least." Already the next course of events was becoming clear to Picard. A brief warp flight to empty space, then a complete shutdown of the Enterprise's computer system, so they could bring it back online without the lockout codes the Thorson personality had somehow programmed into it, and then see what they could do about restoring Mr. Data. Riker approached Picard. "How could Thorson survive all those centuries?" "At some point, he was no longer human, but a personality matrix, a program with tendrils and many computers." Worf called out, "Warbird decloaking." Picard knew there could only be one explanation. Commander Tarl. The view screen flickered as a phaser burst hit the ship. "Mr. Worf, ready on phasers, ready on photon torpedoes." "The Warbird is coming around, Captain. Our phasers are at 50%. The Romulan Warbird filled the screen. The Enterprise shook from the fury of its attack. Picard knew the game was up. Unexpectedly, the Warbird's port side flared with a phaser hit, and the ship disintegrated in a fireball. "Sir, we are being hailed by Captain Bondar of the Garneau." The captain of the Garneau was far different from her first appearance on screen. She was forbidding, implacable. "Who's in charge of your vessel now, Picard?" "I am. We have regained control." "What about that shuttlecraft you're carrying in your tractor beam? Did you bring that out from the event horizon?" "Yes, we did. I believe it is the science package you were supposed to retrieve." Bondar frowned. "I hope not. It looks like the Romulan ship shot it up pretty bad." The Garneau beamed aboard the passengers from the damaged shuttlecraft, and beamed Dr. Crusher to its own sickbay to examine the passengers. Dr. Crusher reported back to Picard in 20 minutes.
Severe radiation burns. The male will require major organ replacement, and the female, well, she seems human, but I'm getting strange double readings.
Beverly, will they survive until we can take them to a starbase?
That's just it, Jean-Luc. The female says she can't go to a starbase. She has to go home or she'll die. She says home is where Captain Kirk was taking them, a planetoid in the Gamma Canaris region.
Picard nodded. We're very near. Do you know who she is?
She gave the name Nancy Headford, but Jean-Luc, I don't think she's the passenger Starfleet was so concerned about. She says the man's name is Zefram Cochrane.
Picard felt a chill flutter up his neck. The Zefram Cochrane?
His features are very close to the portrait in one of the engine manuals they have over here.
Well, if Captain Kirk was taking them home, after what he did for us, the least we can do is complete his mission. Mr. Worf, get me Captain Bundar. Ensign McKnight, lay in a course for the Gamma Canaris region. When Cochran awoke, he remembered the light and the pain of the Romulan attack. But he found himself again on the Enterprise, though not on Kirk's Enterprise. This Enterprise was magic, pure and simple. The second morning he awoke smiling, cradling the companion in his arms. But she had slipped into a coma shortly after. Captain Picard came for him that morning as the companion slept. We have arrived at the planetoid, but I have some rather bad news. The planetoid is no longer here. We're reading rubble almost a century old. We can take you to a starbase where there are medical facilities more advanced than what we can offer. Cochrane smiled sadly. It was time for his journey to end. Captain Picard, could you move the ship so we can see the stars as we would see them from the planetoid? Of course, Mr. Cochran. I will make it so. Cochrane thanked him silently. He was weary. The companion lay warm in his arms. During the middle of ship's night, Beverly Crusher called Picard. She told him it was urgent, to come at once to Cochrane's stateroom. In the bed, Zefram Cochrane, a giant of his time, now out of time, stared without seeing to the stars beyond the viewports. The companion lay beside him, her hand in his, eyes closed, barely breathing. Picard turned to Crusher. Is there nothing you can do? Crusher shook her head. I told him earlier we could get them to a starbase to try some experimental treatments, but he said no. Then Picard sat with the doctor in the darkened room, keeping watch on the passengers from another age. Sometime in the hours that followed, Beverly Crusher squeezed his hand. Jean-Luc, look! Picard turned his eyes from the stars and looked across the stateroom where Cochrane and the companion lay. The bed was glowing. Their forms were glowing. A glowing halo of some wondrous golden energy was rising from the companion's frail body. It danced in delicate rhythms, casting flickering fairy light on all that was in the stateroom. Cochrane slowly turned his head to the light and raised his hand to touch the cloud. The cloud coiled around him, ephemeral, translucent, heartbreakingly alive with color. It slipped down the length of his arm, merging with him. His entire body shone with a steady inner light. Cochrane whispered in a voice full of love, "Can you hear the stars singing?" Then Cochrane lowered his arm. Slowly the glow faded from his body. And slowly Picard realized that Zefram Cochrane's journey had at last come to an end. Picard sat there a long time in the ship's night, with Beverly Crusher beside him. Both were touched by the incredible sense of peace in what they had witnessed. He put his arm around her. She rested her head on his shoulder. There was still so much more to be done. But just for now, just for this stolen moment, they could rest. The Federation would endure.